everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and it's time for the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. With me, as always, is my sidekick, Austin, and tonight, in anticipation of the second Joker movie, we're going to tackle the first one. And this came out 5 years ago now. I don't know how this is already half a decade old. I had this moment today, Austin, where I really thought for sure somehow this was only 3 years ago. I was like, oh yeah, they got that second movie out pretty quick. And then I thought about it, I was like, oh no, it was 19, wasn't it? This predates COVID by a couple of years. And I was like, or a year. And I was like, oh, I'm getting old.
Oh. Is it a bizarre cosmic coincidence that this and Doctor Strange have the exact amount of time between sequels?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, especially because that was always intended, of course, to be a franchise, and this was not. Everybody involved was like, there's no reason that we would make more of these, and then the reason, of course, was $1 billion at the box office.
Well, I just mean because Phoenix was supposed to be Doctor Strange at one point, or was in talks, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you just meant that it's so bizarre that we took that long to make a Doctor Strange movie, and it's so bizarre that this movie has a sequel.
No, it's just because he was almost Doctor Strange. We're
gonna find lots of kind of cosmic jokes tonight, I think.
Apparently.
For some reason, you're sorry. This is gonna distract me the whole review. Because you've got like a weird lag with your audio and your video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which never happens. It's very strange.
Should I maybe try dropping out and coming back in?
Yeah, would you? I hate to be all unprofessional like this, but I don't think I want to deal with that the whole call if we can help it. Go ahead. Apologies there, folks. We'll just wait for Austin here for a second. But go ahead and rig up your movie. Get it to timestamp 0.
Oh. Okay, am I better?
Yes, that is not. Okay. Thank you. God, that was going to drive me insane.
We did it. We beat society, folks.
That was going to make me start painting my face white and go out and murder rich people.
Oh, so I have to tell you this because I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So I just went to the theater today to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I went with my brother, and we're walking out, and he just awkwardly is like, that guy's here to see Joker. And I was like, what do you mean? And I look over and there's a guy in full face paint, and I was like, yes.
That's hilarious.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Well, I always say this with things, but this will date this commentary, but I'm going to see that movie tomorrow. We're going to review it on Monday. Austin's not going, but I'm going to review it with Robert and Connor on Monday. So pop back in for that, folks, if you're so inclined. Thanks for watching live tonight. Thanks for watching after the fact if you're doing that. And as always, we'd love to interact with you as we go along, so you can help direct the conversation with the Super Chats or regular comments. And a Super Chat will guarantee, of course, that we talk about whatever aspect of the movie you'd like us to, or that we read your opinion, your feelings on air. Austin, would you agree that this is, at this point, one of kind of the more polarizing movies in the superhero realm?
I mean, probably, but like, it was that way from the get-go. Yeah. My big thing with this movie is the discourse around them. Only the first one, really. There's been like none of that for the second one. But the
second one feels obligatory, and people seem just kind of, in general, disinterested. Or people that loved the first one are like mildly, curious about the second one. But
yeah, no, exactly. No, I find the discourse with the first movie way more interesting than the actual movie.
Sure.
Because it was like completely insane. It was like one side being like, this is gonna be like it's gonna show the system, and the other side being like, this is gonna encourage like shootings and things like that. And then you watch the movie, and it has nothing to do with anything they were all arguing about. And it was just all very amusing to see.
And yet, in a real broad, vague kind of way, still feels like kind of a political movie. So it wasn't like about the things that people thought it was going to be about. It was almost like it was an older argument, because it kind of gets back to some of the like 99 versus 1% stuff that Dark Knight Rises was dealing with. And I don't think that's what anybody thought that movie was going to be about.
Yeah, like maybe like a little bit, but that wasn't really how people were talking about it. At least people that were condemning it.
Yeah.
There's maybe a bit more of that on the other side.
Yeah, and I know there were folks that were worried that it was gonna what's the word I'm looking for? That it was gonna almost like humanize that character too much, or like or like make it seem like it was okay to you know take out the right people or whatever.
Yeah, I remember there being talk for like the month leading up to it, where there was a ton of people being like, "Don't even go see this movie because you will be injured if you like even attempt to do it." And I was like, "What? Like, there's no way."
Yeah, and then it's really strange the ways in which it does feel kind of watered down and corporate, but trying really hard not to look that way all at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I would argue, but yeah, when I brought up the idea that this movie is polarizing, when it came out, I felt like at least a lot of the people I was talking to, people thought that it was kind of that was almost a masterpiece, kind of brilliant. People, or at least a lot of folks, just were pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed it. And I feel like some of those people have stuck to their guns on that, and some of them have really like lost interest in it on repeat viewings, and I am in that camp. I liked this fine when it came out. I didn't think it was genius or anything, but I was like pleasantly surprised by it, and I also admired it more than anything for just being an off the beaten path Elseworlds kind of thing based on mainstream comics with a not inflated budget that said, hey, we could just make movies that don't have to be big franchise pieces, that don't have to cost $300 million, and that can be made with mostly practical effects and on the streets of a city, and just experiment and try things. And I didn't love everything that it tried, and I kind of wished it was more interested in source material, just because there's so little of that. I felt like it almost didn't even need to really be based on that character, and I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. And then the ways that it does decide to go to source material, it's like, well, that feels a little tacked on or shoehorned in just so that you can put the DC logo on it. And we'll talk about that, because I still feel that way to some degree, and then in other ways I'm weird about it. This is going to be a strange commentary, because I'm in very much this I don't even know how I feel about this movie anymore kind of place. I'm having a different viewing with it every time I see it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But I
And
don't like it the way I did when it came out. Like I feel like the seams have started to show, the more I've looked at it.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I saw the trailer when it came out, and I was like, that looks like the most obvious, like pretentious Oscar bait Joker movie. And I was like, I'm not seeing it. And then I ended up getting dragged to it by friends. And I was like, well, they made the movie that they advertised.
Yeah.
Although I also feel like I have what you have to a degree, and that I probably was more positive walking out than I am now. Uh, and I like 100% agree. Like, I love the idea of doing smaller comic book films that are just in a city and uh, look like a real movie or whatever. My issue with that is that they did it, and instead of doing anything new or interesting, they made like a facsimile of a real movie.
Yeah, and I didn't have that then, but I do have that some now.
Hmm.
So we'll get into it. And it doesn't help that I've looked at some of the movies that influenced this subsequently, and I've just watched more movies in this vein, I guess, in the last 5 years. And so when Jay in the Red Letter Media review says Baby's First Taxi Driver, like, that's absolutely right. And what's always weird about that kind of thing, just saying that about a movie, is Baby's First Taxi Driver should be Taxi Driver. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need some kind of precursor to that movie. Just watch that movie.
Or like a kid's version of it, like Scooby Doo meets Taxi Driver is Baby's First Taxi Driver.
But the movie is about 2 hours long, so we should go ahead and get into it. We got plenty of time to talk all these things out.
Yeah.
If you want to watch it with us, and we encourage you to do that, pull up your Blu-ray DVD. It's still on HBO Max, or I guess Max now if you want to watch it that way, and get it to timestamp 0. If you're watching it on Max, just get it past the HBO home movie presentation logo, and get ready to press play in just 1 second. Here we go, everybody. Let me get my audio set up correctly here. And away we go. Everybody, please press play. Oh, hold on. I don't have my clock either. I got to get that going. We don't want a repeat of a few shows ago. All right, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. So right out of the gate, I want to say, Austin, that I think I was won over a lot more in the theater by the novelty of just how throwback and old-fashioned this is to late 70s and early 80s movies. And the more I'm... Because there... Again, it's weird that this feels still so recent to me because it's also a little quaint in its way because I feel like since this, especially, we've been making more and more movies that do a decent job of looking like they're made in different eras. And that was a big novelty for me, where like I didn't think that I would see a movie go back to this period and to this genre and make something that looks more or less like it could have actually been made there and feels really authentic in that way. And the more I'm looking at it now, it's weird. Like just 5 years, it feels like it has not aged great. Like now I'm looking at it and I'm going, it's almost like nostalgia bait to not superhero things, but other kinds of movies,
or like a nostalgia bait for like art house people. In a weird way.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Isn't that odd? Where the novelty is, if you like quote unquote real movies, you don't care for the superhero crap. We're gonna make a movie that people are actually that will like dupe people to go to the theater because it is one of those. But this time, it's gonna actually be quote unquote cinema.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And ironically, because of that, some of the more obvious on-the-nose thematic stuff, I feel like would actually play better and seem more impressive and clever if they were in a $300 million big-budget superhero movie. But because it's this kind of thing, it feels a little bit more like it's like bashing you over the head with it, and like trying to prove how smart it is. I just the last couple times I've watched this, I'm getting a very like a manufactured feeling with it, where it's almost more interesting as a case study in making a movie, or just kind of looks like an interesting experiment to put together, than it feels like I'm actually watching a real world that's got like actual people in it. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that it has to be realistic or look just like the world we live in. I just mean, like, does this feel like a reality, or does it feel like a bunch of people made a movie? I'm having that more and more with it.
Almost like a better version of the experiment that was the Psycho remake. And obviously they're very different things, but that's kind of like what you're saying, like what it reminded me of.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because, and I feel bad about this, I just don't find myself grabbing onto Arthur as a character the way I want to. Like, everything on paper feels like it should work. It never comes together to create a fully realized character to me.
When he's kind of like a grab bag of cliche.
That's how I feel about it. And also, some of it is cliche and some of it is just... some of it's just kind of random. Like they're not all cliches. The idea that forget the DC Joker part of it. The idea that somebody whose motif will eventually be, like as a serial killer, as a supervillain, their motif will be like clowns and comedy and all of that, starts with this like laughing condition, this like really unfortunate, awful like nervous tic that he has that he can't control, and then because of that he becomes obsessed with the idea of comedy, but he's so antisocial and set apart from everyone that he doesn't understand what comedy is. All of that on paper I like, Austin.
Hmm.
Like even the laughing condition thing, I don't know about you, I like that as an idea. I don't necessarily want it to be the Joker, but that's why this can live on its own and be its own thing. Like I don't mind that aspect of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. And like for being the Joker, I do think it's like too cutesy, but you kind of have to separate that because this movie already is.
Yeah,
And just as a
agreed.
movie, I think it's fine. Yeah.
But the problem is, I just don't ultimately really find him sympathetic, and I feel bad about that because I feel like I ought to. But it's like,
Well,
why don't I ever really care that much about this guy? Is it because we're too close to him and uh, he's just not relatable? Because when you look at the characters that they're homaging or ripping off or inspired by, or however you want to look at it, from the two big obvious Scorsese pulls with Taxi Driver and with King of Comedy, and we can talk later about, is that too rip off? Is it just homage? All of that. But when you look at those two characters, part of the reason they work is because at face value they feel like people and then you come to find just how isolated and set apart and antisocial they are. But especially in the case of the guy in Taxi Driver, he's able to convince people that he is just a regular guy. And then you're finding out, as the curtain gets pulled back, just how out of touch and out of step the guy is. And so the question is, like, do we lay it on too thick at the start of this? Or do you have to do that because this character is so much more far gone than that guy is and is in such a worse state? I mean, in that way, at least it's not the exact same character.
hmm yeah, and I'm more fine, I guess, with him not being sympathetic. I think we talked about this a little bit with the request we did on that Andrew Garfield movie. Where like there is a balance where you can have a character that I don't really like, but I'm interested enough, and that's what draws me in more so. And I think this movie lacks both.
I agree, but as always, when I say sympathetic, I mean dictionary definition. Like I
For
sort of
sure.
get where this guy comes from, but I'm not latching onto him even as like an interesting, like sad or scary case study because I don't feel like it all comes together. I'm not totally getting why he does some of what he does.
Mhm. There is a little bit of just random crazy built into things he does. Where it's like, oh, he's gonna climb into the fridge now because he's crazy.
Yeah, well, and listening to Todd Phillips' commentary was really enlightening because some of the things that I find most random, and I can't decide if they add up in this movie, were choices they made up on the day that weren't in the script, and that was one of them. And a lot of the dancing stuff was that way too.
That sounds about right.
And so
I
part of
knew
the
they
part
did
of
a
the
lot of
problem is,
that for
it,
two, but I didn't know if that was also with this one.
yes, it looks like well. That's the thing is that he's making a drama in a very much the same way he apparently makes his comedies.
Mhm.
And I'll admit I've never seen any of his other movies. I'm not, those stoner comedy things. So I've never seen Hangover
And
or
I,
anything
I
like
don't think
that.
you would like his comedies.
That's
Just
why I didn't watch them.
yeah.
Not even in preparation for this. I just now I will say immediately because I'm starting with negative stuff immediately. Just going like well let me go to the thing I was about to say, which is this is a movie that looks great and is acted great and that feels like it has because there's a clear consistent tone and style here, but it feels like it has like it should have a full-on creative and story vision, and because of the way it's made, as we were talking about, it kind of pulls the wool over my eyes on a first viewing. And when I get to the end of it, I realize, with maybe the exception of some of the choices in the third act, where it comes together a little bit better, because I think the ending gets too on the nose, and I don't like how overwritten it is, but it goes to a more interesting place than I thought it was going to in the theater. And so I do like how some of the like thematic and character ideas are kind of stick a landing by the end. But up until that, too often it kind of just feels like I just random like sad things are happening.
Yeah. Sorry, there's like a few things I want to jump off
Go
of
ahead. Go
from
ahead.
that. But with like there's too many sad things happening. I feel like this movie has like one idea, which is let's talk about how bad we handle mental illness in America. And I'm like, I agree, but I think it's so surface level that most of what it has to say about it is just he goes from scene to scene interacting with people and they ignore that he has bad mental health, and that's
Yeah, and so then
kind of it, and it repeats that beat over and over, and I think a lot of it ends up being really repetitive. Sorry, you were going to jump off of
oh,
that.
sorry, I was just gonna say. So, are we exploring mental health and how society deals with it, or are we just broadly saying we ignore these people too much, and that's and that's kind of all you get?
Yeah, because I agree, and I want like
I
I
wanted to
wanted
deal
to
with
talk
that
about
more.
it a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. Also, I wanted to jump off your compliments because I agree. I think this movie looks really great. The production is really good. I think the acting is overall really good, but I'm also not a fan of Joaquin Phoenix. Mostly in general, I like him in Gladiator, but uh, in some other movies, and especially this, he always just screams acting to me.
Yeah.
And
No, I
I don't
don't
know.
disagree with that,
Yeah.
but I can't deny that a lot of what he's doing is like technically impressive, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that
Mhm,
even like going all the way down to the acting,
mhm,
it's more of an interesting experiment than it feels like I'm being wrapped up in a story.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm like, how do you stand to like laugh like that long and and how'd you come up with all these different sorts of laughs that mean different things with that character, and
Mhm.
like the notebook that Joaquin Phoenix creates by hand is really cool and impressive. Like he did a lot of work on this.
Oh, Phoenix did the book by hand?
He did.
That's
And he
interesting.
came up with most of it on his own. A lot of it was Phillips, like giving him an initial idea, and then he would jump off of it. And they only had one, and he carried it around all the time, even in scenes where it wasn't used.
Hmm. Interesting. Because I also feel like the notebook thing is what we always go to with like this kind of crazy
No, that's true. It's
person. Like
really
so,
typical. I'm just saying that
yeah.
it's technically impressive. The thing
No, I agree.
itself,
Like I'm
he
just
worked
surprised.
really hard on it, Austin.
That's what surprises me is that it's such like a typical thing. Like I'm surprised that it was something he kind of took in on himself and like it's more
Yeah,
personalized.
every aspect of this is elevating a kind of thin, underwritten script. Even though I'm complaining that the big speech he has at the end is overwritten, because
It
it
flips.
is.
Arthur is underwritten, Joker is overridden, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So how do you feel about just getting into some story stuff now?
Yeah.
How do you feel about Arthur's hallucinations?
I wish we had a little bit more. We kind of talked about this off camera, but I don't think this movie does enough with that kind of perspective and making you, unsure about exactly what you're following. And I feel like I need more of that.
Yeah,
And
I
I
kind
wish
of
we did more
think.
with the hallucinations. That's why the idea of making two a musical is actually really appealing to me because I'm like, oh, maybe we'll jump into that a little more.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I do appreciate that we're in his head the whole time,
Mhm.
but then I don't know. It's awkward, right? Because there are places where it feels like it's holding the audience's hand too much, and I kind of want it to just take the risk
Mhm.
of because at the same time as I want to say it holds our hand too much. There are also things about this movie that I think are too ambiguous that we'll talk about as we go along.
Mhm.
And I have one big crazy ridiculous theory that I guess I'll bring up later. I've been on the fence about whether I even want to talk about it because I haven't heard anybody else bring this up, and I think if it's possible, I could be right about it. The movie doesn't even know about it. It's not like an intentional thing. I'll talk about that later. But I think I
That's
agree
still
with
a potential read,
I.
even if other people don't see it.
Okay, I'll get there. But
Yeah.
I think I agree once again with Jay from the Red Letter Media review, who did not have a great first viewing of this. I don't know how he'd feel about it now if he watched it again. But when he says that the big reveal later on in the movie that the girlfriend is that her interaction with him has been mostly in his head and that they don't actually have that relationship, would be a lot more effective if we didn't have this already. This bit at the beginning where he's, and this isn't even a hallucination. He's just imagining that he's on the Murray Franklin show and that he's saying everything that Arthur's ever wanted to hear, and he is like getting into that role of father figure. The thing is, I don't even look at this as when I'm first seeing it as hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just feels like that standard like movie thing of he's imagining a thing, and so we're getting into his imagination and seeing what he's imagining. Like that doesn't scream crazy, but then at the same time, because we are getting into his imagination like that, it isn't as surprising when you get that reveal later.
Do you think we maybe should have made that stuff more
I'm going to be filled with
stylized?
contradictions tonight. Just warning everybody.
Do you think we maybe should have made that stuff more stylized, where maybe you go into his head and it's maybe like more colorful, or like things are kind of warped?
Yeah.
Almost like you have the
absolutely.
the like Caligari, like Tim Burton-y kind of like buildings don't always make sense, like things like that. Obviously, you would have to kind of retool it if you're going to do that a lot through the movie, but do you think it maybe should have done something like that?
Yes, because it would have helped to create... No, you're absolutely onto something, because it would have helped to create an idea that Todd Phillips keeps talking about in his commentary, because it's just one of those commentaries that is explaining, I think, too much about what he thinks he's making, like telling me what it means and what's there, or what it's about, while simultaneously saying he doesn't want to tell me what it's about. But he suggests that the transformation from Arthur to the Joker at the end is supposed to be him embracing like who's always in sight, like in him all along. And so it's almost the Batman thing where like he takes off his mask and his true self at the end is Joker, which I just fundamentally never saw with it. I much more saw a guy that was trying to like create what he wanted to be his true self, but not that like he's chiseling it, you know, out of marble, that it was always... It doesn't really feel that way to me. And if the idea is there's almost two personalities where there's a Joker inside of him and he's just got to let that out, a great way to introduce that idea to the audience, to communicate that, would be to let him full on be that guy in his imagination.
Yeah, now that you say that, that is a good idea. Maybe he's even like in the makeup and stuff when he's in his head like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then when you get to the end, there he is. There's Joker, and we've seen him all along because that's who he really wants to be. But that's not really how I saw it. Like, it's just a guy who's making a living being a clown at like the most curious kind of temp agency. Like, this is such an odd idea. Also, I fundamentally kind of don't buy, even in 1981, which they're a little ambiguous at first about what exact year this is, and then when you get the movies on the marquee at the end, it becomes clear exactly what date it has to be, or what year it has to be.
Which I always thought was strange, because I always thought they were going for more of a 70s period piece, but it's not. It's 81.
Well, they do that for two big reasons, I think, or small, kind of picky reasons if you want to look at it that way. One of them is so that when Bruce's parents die, they can be... By the way, this is related to Batman. I don't know if anybody realizes that. When Bruce's parents die, they're going to a Zorro movie. Gay Blade came out in 1981, so you can do that. And the other thing is, he can't have a VCR in his house before this year. And he's taping stuff off of TV and going back and rewatching the Murray Franklin show. But also, he's poor and it's 1981, and VHS players are ridiculously expensive, so he wouldn't be able to have one anyway.
I was gonna say, like, that's the type of stuff we fudge in movies, and you can kind of laugh at, but like, it really doesn't matter.
It
At the end of
doesn't,
the
and I'm
day.
mostly just joking. But
No,
I
I
think
mean,
I think
like,
it's
in
fun to
terms of setting it.
complain about that kind of thing.
No, I'm just saying in terms of setting it earlier. I think it's actually funnier that they thought of it and went, well, it has to be this year, but it also doesn't make sense. Like, it's almost funnier.
So I'm gonna suggest the way to, and this is maybe not fair, but honestly, the way to get around the issue of do we have too much of a hint of the hallucination thing earlier is just don't go there in the first place. It feels too obvious and gimmicky at the point we get it, and I don't really get what it gives us besides just he's kind of crazy. Like, wouldn't it be?
Mhm.
I don't know. Am I right about this? Would it almost not be better if he was just imagining someone and deep down he knew that person wasn't real, but the audience doesn't really know for sure because we're so with him and he's got this detachment from reality thing where and I like this, by the way, that he keeps talking about how his whole life he can't decide if he's a real person or not. That's one of the big things that rang true with me with this. That he's so out of touch and not connected to anybody and so ignored that he thinks it's. I mean, it's possible I don't even exist. That's one of the big sympathetic things I actually saw in it. But I wonder if maybe it should just be something that's kind of revealed very subtly to the audience, where it's like, oh, she's not real, and he knew it the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd probably be a little bit better because the way it plays, like, it's super obvious that it's not real, and then when you get it, it doesn't just let the moment play. It has to have the flashbacks, which I think is
Are very handholdy.
very handholdy.
And you know me, I don't like that in general, but
Yeah. No, because you get it the second she walks in, and then the movie doesn't trust you at all.
yeah. And I felt insulted in the theater when they started flashing back, and you had to show like him sitting next to no one on the bench and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it was somebody that he actually physically or not physically, but actually manifested in his mind from whole cloth, that like was not a real person that we'd met there, going back and doing flashbacks with it actually would have worked okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you found out his mom didn't exist or something.
Yeah, sure. And of course, we're just completely rewriting the movie at that point. But
Yeah,
I don't.
no,
I
I'm
don't
just
think
like throwing out a suggestion like that. Yeah.
now. When I said I'm not sure about it, again, I'm of two minds with so much stuff in this. This might as well be a Two-Face movie. I feel like
We're so puzzled. It's like the Riddler.
I'm very puzzled. Yeah, exactly. I can't think of a penguin thing. I'm trying, but
Well, I want to throw a rock at this movie, so it's basically a Killer Croc movie.
and sorry guys, I'll get to super chats here in a minute. But on the other hand, having if you're gonna do the hallucination thing, where he thinks that he is, that he's got a relationship with this woman, it makes sense that with what he's most troubled by, in not being able to make connections with people, it's like one of the only people in the movie that was nice to him. And I also like that he even kind of misinterpreted that in the elevator. He makes this like very slight connection with a person that is still really awkward from everybody's perspective but his.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like how that turns into the planned quote unquote joke for committing suicide on the Murray Franklin show. It goes all the way from just like, again, this really disconnected person who sees a woman that makes a joke about how stressed she is, putting her hand to her temple like a gun. Like that's the closest to a deep human interaction he has with a person, and he takes that all the way to that's the big comedic bit he's going to use to end his life and like create longevity for his own legacy at the end. That's all quite good, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
but there's definitely a lot of, you know, really heavy-handed and obvious symbolism that I think both the movie and the director in his commentary think are much more original and clever than they are.
Hmm. That must be really awkward then, that commentary.
Well, it is because he keeps talking about ascending the stairs like I don't know what it means, and I'm like, yeah, I
Oh,
get it. He's trying to climb, like yeah, he has a really rough climb, and he can't get out of his situation. So ultimately, he descends the stairs when he decides to be the Joker. And like maybe it's a little in your face about it in the movie with the way it's shot and everything,
mhm.
but I would respect it more if the man just didn't bring it up in his commentary. I think it works okay in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely kind of symbolic visual stuff we've talked about like that that does really work in better movies. So I'm not against that offhand. Same with you have the shot with him on the bus where he's like in the window, and then we recreate that shot later on when he's Joker. So it's like it's not like it's entirely bad um, storytelling visually. Like we are doing stuff with it. It's just that a lot of it is just there for kind of surface level ideas.
Yeah, I guess what I'm really getting at with it is that I don't feel like I'm thinking any more deeply about what's happening because those things are there. They're just kind of like the artistic things that you would do with props and a camera making a movie about the subject matter.
Mhm.
And so like it is artistic. I mean it's fine. It's cool that it's there, but it's just the story itself is kind of thin. And so they elevate it a little bit.
Yeah, and to a degree, like with how it kind of plays and feeling like, oh, we're gonna put together this like really deep, smart, uh, like Oscar baity kind of movie. Like it also has that level of, well, this is what these kind of movies have. So here are the things we have to put in it.
Yeah, do you feel like it's kind of checkboxy?
To a degree, yeah. Not like the worst I've seen for that, but I mean, I do feel like that's kind of how they pieced it together.
Dan Steiner puts in a $5 super chat and says the line between being influenced by something and ripping something off would make a great GNN. Sort of surprised you haven't done it already. Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I would. I would have to plan some examples ahead of time. I think.
Hmm. Yeah, that is an interesting one. I remember I was in the movie theater once, and there was a guy in front of me, and he was kind of chatting with the like popcorn guy, and the theater employee said like, you know, have you seen the Batman? Did you like it? And he was like, well, I've seen Seven and Zodiac, so like I don't really need that. And I was like, I mean, like there's influence there, but like they're not really a one for one. So that would kind of be interesting in that there is a line that I think we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, and what's interesting about it is sometimes you'll like a thing that other people feel like is too rip-offy and goes beyond homage because you're already a fan of that thing, and sometimes you like it a lot less because you're already a fan of that thing.
Exactly.
And then you just kind of get into subjective feelings that are difficult to quantify.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
I
we're
was going to
all.
say this earlier. Even in 1981, I don't think I buy that this man is allowed around children.
What do you mean he's Patch Adams?
But like he's been in and out of institutions,
Oh yeah.
and he clearly is potentially a danger to himself and others. Like, could he get some sort of a job? Sure. Is he getting a job where he's allowed around kids? I don't know about that.
The only thing I would say for that is there have been places where things like that do happen.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's impossible, but I also get where you're coming from. It's maybe one of those places where when you put it in fiction, it's it seems very like crazy and out there, but then you know you hear about it in real life. So it's
Yeah,
hard
and
to kind of balance on
I'm
that.
always on about this, Austin. Just because something does happen or has happened in real life doesn't make it believable in a movie. And
No,
there
I
are
agree. That's what I mean. Like there's
yeah, and there are
it's that
some
line.
yeah, I just feel like that's got to be stated that's got to be stated
We
explicitly.
maybe have to be talking about it.
Yeah, I sometimes you need more development for it not to just feel like a kind of gimmicky, crazy, coincidental thing. Or
Well, maybe instead of that boss scene just being another one of here's a person kind of ignoring that this is a crazy person that needs help, maybe you could instead have that scene be talking about some of this stuff, or even that phone scene we just had.
well, I feel like Phillips thinks that he has covered a lot of things just in the bad uh, like social and economic state that Gotham is in at the beginning of the movie.
Hmm.
And that kind of explains all of this stuff. And I will say, the more I'm watching it, I'm picking up more on that stuff, and I can see why he thinks that explains it. But especially on first viewing, I had a tough time buying even like the sort of pseudo revolution that happens just based on the three of these rich kids getting killed. And it took another viewing or two before I realized that it's more of a reaction to what Thomas Wayne says about it.
Hmm.
And then I still can't decide if it's developed quite enough. Where I'm like, and then it's complicated because you're with Arthur almost every frame of the movie. So how much can you really develop some of these ideas because you're not getting away from him?
Hmm. And I mean, I do like that some of that is more in the background where this character doesn't care about any of that.
Sure.
So I like aspects of that, but
But at the same time,
you
there
need a
aren't.
little bit more world building, I think, with some of that. Like, even if you keep it in the background.
Well, and I almost want to say plot building before
Yeah.
world building, because there are whole major plot points where I'm like, I don't know if the dots quite connect. We're like, yes, you can tell me what the explanation is, and it's in the movie, and I get that. But do I buy it? Is enough of it there?
Hmm.
So like look at this, and this movie does want to be like realistic in its way. Do we buy that in the real world, a politician running for mayor that doesn't even have the job yet, calling I like poor people clowns? And of course, it's not like that's not exactly what he says. Like, it's kind of misconstrued by people in the media. But like, do we buy that would incite the kinds of riots that we get here, or would it have to be like an actual mayor or a president before that would happen? Like, that's kind of a question I had.
Hmm. I mean, he is also like the richest person in Gotham, so like it goes into that class divide.
Right.
Um, Maybe even more so before it goes to like a political place with that.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess that's true.
but yeah, I feel like there should just be kind of more things in the background that are showing how bad Gotham is, and that there is this class divide between people. Like, I almost want kind of like a Shaun of the Dead thing where when you're seeing him walk through Gotham, like you can see it like in the background as he's walking.
Yeah, I feel like it's talked about more than we see it, even though it's certainly like a. Again, the movie looks good. It's certainly gritty enough, but
Yeah.
it's weird. In his commentary, Phillips points out like four different places where very subtly in the background they actually included one of the super rats that are talked about throughout the movie. And I'm like, why didn't you make that clearer? I couldn't even see them when he was pointing them out in his commentary.
Oh, weird. You're gonna have to say when it comes up because I didn't know that was a thing. But like,
Now, I'm
uh,
not gonna know. I couldn't see them.
mhm. Yeah, fair
I don't
enough.
remember where they are in the movie now. He just goes, oh, there's a super. I think there's actually one in this scene. He's like, oh, there's a off to the side. If you're really paying attention, there's one of the super rats. And I'm like, it's not super enough, dude. You need to make that thing like much more gigantic.
Yeah,
That's
it's Gotham, man. There should be a penguins with rockets on their backs. Forget super rats.
I did think that idea gave it somewhat of a superficial quality. Or
Mhm.
sorry, a kind of sorry, I'm getting tired.
That's okay.
That I gave it kind of surreal quality.
Hmm.
Of like, oh no, Gotham's being overrun by super rats.
But also with the class divide thing, you also could have had like a moment with those Wall Street guys where they're on like this really trashy looking train. Like that set looks really good. But like they're kind of above that in a societal money way.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that wouldn't have been any more obvious or cliche than a lot of the other things in this movie.
No, exactly. So we're on to our first real big dance scene.
Which, okay, so let's talk about the dancing thing for a second, because
Yeah,
my
because I do
issue
have a
is
read on it,
my
but
issue with it is quantity before it's the choice. We just have to watch this go on for too long, and I'm not getting any more out of it by seeing it constantly.
mhm.
And it kind of just feels like at some point they thought it looked. You can just imagine them on set going, God, this is beautiful, and they just keep filming it, and then they use a bunch of it in the edit. The the idea, and Phillips talks about this in his commentary, but this is already kind of what I thought, is supposed to be that he is. We'll see if Austin's read is different than this. Is just that he sees himself as a showman, and he starts performing like this whenever he does something that in his mind like sets him apart and makes him great in some way. And so like the violence he's finding is like his way to get noticed, and like now he's an artist because he's doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I was also gonna say, like, there's also, to a degree, like a coping mechanism there, where like he just went when he goes through hardships like this, he will then start dancing. Um, there is like a pretentiousness to it and how it's shot, but like I do think it's trying to say something. I just don't think what it's saying adds up to enough to like kind of overlay that kind of pretentiousness to it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It does kind of read pretentious. I don't think it reads coping because whenever it happens, it seems like he's had this big release where he's getting like lighter and more confident and more
Hmm.
and more happy with who he is.
Hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure.
the kind of twisted thing about that is supposed to be that the most horrific things that he does that happen in the movie, he finds the most freeing,
Hmm. Yeah, I
and
guess
they're funny.
yeah. No, you're right about that. Absolutely. It is much more of like it's like a freestyle. Like this is him.
Because now that he is I that he's getting thrown out of this. Oh, by the way, I was shocked to find out that he's literally punching the clock was an ad lib.
Oh, okay.
That feels like a scripted thing.
Hmm.
And it's kind of impressive that he thought of that on the day, just because it's one of the most legitimately, like, I mean, I don't mean it's laugh out loud funny or anything, but like it's an actual joke. Like he's punching a clock, and that seems like a kind of a Joker joke, because intentionally a lot of the jokes he makes aren't even really jokes. Like he doesn't get comedy, although I feel like sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't.
Well, I mean, that's an example where like that is like an actual joke. It's
Yeah,
like crazy, but
yeah, that feels like a thing Joker would do, except he would take out like comic book Joker, except because I don't know if you realize this, but this is based on a comic book character.
in
But comic book Joker
case you missed it.
would take out I gotta point that out every so often. Would take out like a big punching bag, or like punching glove gun, and then
Mhm.
he'd punch the clock with the punching glove gun. That's what he would do. But Philip said that it was like a really impractical thing for him to do because they didn't plan it, and that thing was made of really hard metal.
That's why it takes a few hits.
Yeah. He's like he didn't break his hand.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, then he really would have won that Oscar. I know he already did, but that would have been part of it. Like, oh, he
See,
hurt himself doing a thing.
I don't care how pretentious or overacting you think this role is. He's just working his ass off, Austin. He deserves the Oscar for physically punching a clock when he didn't have to.
Well, now I'm wondering if some of the jokes that do really work are ad libs.
Yeah. Yeah, what is your read on his relationship with humor, Austin? Like, am I right that it's like is the issue that it's inconsistent? Is it intentionally inconsistent? Just in sometimes it feels like he's making like a real joke, and something like the thing about his, for instance, laughing at the setup and not the punchline, where he doesn't seem to really understand humor, but then occasionally I feel like he kind of does.
Yeah, it doesn't have a consistent handle on it. You have something like King of Comedy where when you get to the end and you get to see his stand-up special, um, he's not like amazing or anything, but like he's good, and it tells you that if he just worked hard, he maybe could have made it on his own. And it's that kind of idea of knowing exactly where the character falls on that is maybe a little lacking here.
Well, again, if the idea is supposed to be that the real him is the crazed, terrifying Joker, and we'll get him in the third act, why don't you just make him funny and Arthur isn't funny? And like once he really embraces himself and stops trying to find connections with people, he actually is funny. But in like a really morbid, screwed up kind of way. And like they're so close to that in places. When you get to the end and he's on the talk show, there are choices he makes that are classic comic Joker to me. And like I really like his performance in the costume at the end in a number of places.
Yeah, it's really weird because like he has like little ticks and stuff that I can see Joker doing, but then he also has, as you kind of mentioned, the overridden speech, and he's like on the verge of tears the entire speech, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't know if we should have went this far with it. It feels
Yeah.
a little awkward.
Well, and I also think that it's maybe a little bit at odds with itself. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but at the end with the idea that he is not at all political, and I think it's true. He thinks it's true when he says that. That he's not trying to be a symbol. He's not trying to start a movement. He just didn't like those guys and killed them. And he doesn't like. Oh, real quick, this is one of the things that that Philip said that I thought was kind of like insulting to his audience, where he felt the need to explain that the movie is about kindness.
Okay, with like the whole now she won't take him and he can't get his medicine. That's another one of those scenes where we're like really beating in the mental health.
Well, and just all the way through the movie that Arthur is like he basically just explains what you're seeing. That's like really obvious. That, like the idea that Arthur doesn't like it when people aren't nice and don't pay attention to people, and he's the only people he murders really, even once he's full on Joker, which is also part of why the transformation idea kind of went over my head. They're all just people that have ignored him and have wronged him.
He had to explain that in the commentary?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He goes, people missed that this movie is about kindness.
Joker basically says that in the movie.
Yeah.
When he lets the one guy go. Oh my god.
And that's why I'm frustrated with the script, because it's written by some, I'm sorry to say it like this, but it's written by somebody who has I feel like kind of a juvenile grasp of dramatic storytelling. Like if I was again, there's a lot of decisions that are made in the plotting that I like, but when you get into some of the dialogue and you get into some of the like symbolic choices and stuff, it kind of feels like a first time writer putting in a first draft. And if I was workshopping this in college, I would have had a lot of notes.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's a lot
That's
to work with
ridiculous.
here, but then the problem is, you. I don't mean to keep talking in circles, but then you give it this great production, and it masks a lot of that,
Hmm.
which is ironic given some of the themes of the movie.
It put on its happy makeup, and now it looks better.
You know, maybe that's kind of the joke of the movie is that like you see underneath it, it's kind of all surface.
Hmm.
But that's not even fair. That's hyperbolic. It's not all surface. I mean, there's some stuff here, but I feel like it needed another couple of passes.
Hmm.
And so to finish that thought, when you get to the end and he is saying like I'm not political, he's also it's also a revenge thriller. You know, I mean, he like he acts like I just think it's funny doing these things, but then he also when he kills Murray says it's because he gets what he deserves.
Hmm. Like, I can't decide if it's the Joker just chasing cars or if it's he's heavily motivated.
Yeah, and I wonder if you couldn't get from one to the other.
Hmm.
But
No,
then you
you
would need
probably could.
examples of the Joker killing people on the street randomly for the heck of it. And
Hmm.
this Joker doesn't do that. It's all revenge.
Hmm.
At least so far. We'll see what happens in the next one. I also think there's a chance that, and people are saying not so great things about that new movie. I'm going to see it tomorrow, and then then I'll have my own feelings about it. But like, there's a chance that a sequel could clear some things up with this.
For sure. I'm waiting with bated breath to see how you feel about that. I'm excited to find out.
You know, it means a lot to me, Austin. I just like it makes me all warm and fuzzy. I feel very close to you when you're more interested in whether I like that movie than
That I am
watching
to
the
see
damn
it.
movie. Yeah, like you have no interest in seeing it. But you're like, I'm waiting with bated breath to see if my friend Captain Logan likes this movie. Like, I don't know, that's touching. I really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I'm like I'm very excited to see how you feel about it.
That's very touching. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. A lot of people related to Arthur Fleck. That's part of why the film was so popular. A lot of young men really felt like they were him for better or worse.
Yeah, and I feel like this movie kind of struggles with that. And I think Philip is maybe a little annoyed that you had quite a bit of that, but at the same time, I do think there is a little bit of a failure to communicate how much we're supposed to look down on him and how much we're supposed to feel like this is kind of a thing that happens to a lot of people in that way that people found relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I think Phillips wants him to be relatable in a way. Like he keeps talking about him in his commentary like we're supposed to sympathize with him but then be horrified by things he does. So I mean, there's supposed to be a human being underneath all of this.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But then, like, at the same time, obviously, like, it's a horrible thing, but like you can kind of see why someone would maybe be relating with this character and feeling downtrodden, and then not be as condemning of them as they kind of like rise up because they're only going after revenge.
Yeah.
Like, these people have actually wronged him. Not, and again, I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there is an element where it's failing to communicate that in a
Yeah,
way that
because
a lot of other movies that do this don't.
yeah. Well, and I could see and also like some people just read into a movie what they want to and get really superficial about it and are
Definitely.
maybe themselves out of touch enough that if they want to romanticize a character like this, they don't need a director to do that for them.
Mhm.
Which is the reason that it's not fair to blame movies for people committing acts of violence. They're
No,
they're,
of course.
they're gonna find that in the culture somewhere, and identify with it. But like in Philip's defense, I certainly don't think that there's any amount of, even with the revenge thriller nature of this, romanticizing the the heinous deeds he's doing. Like the violence is played as terrible and scary, but from the perspective of the protagonist, it's funny. And I don't think there's any sense of like, this is not an offensive movie to me. I wish it was better, but like, I'm not offended by it. I don't think there's any sense of like mean spirited. I don't even think it's a cynical movie.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about you.
No, I wouldn't say that. I do feel like it does kind of struggle with that, like, just because I do think there is supposed to be a level of catharsis in seeing him getting revenge, at least to a degree. Like, there is for the character, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think the movie is just kind of struggling with, is it cathartic to see him get revenge on Murray, or is it scary?
Yeah. No, you're right.
And I don't know if it lands exactly where
And for
it
the
should.
sake of this movie, I'm fine with it either way. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
for the sake of being a Joker thing, I'd kind of rather it go, more in the direction of like random acts of violence.
That's why I've always had. I mean, I think we talked about this when we did Dark Knight Returns, where I always felt like this movie didn't push that far enough in that scene, and that's where I think we kind of lose that. Like, if he just went like crazy on that show, then it's full on straight up, this is horrifying. But it's just he got revenge, and that's where I think it is kind of losing where it's landing on that.
Well, and again, that's one of the big reasons that the idea that the Joker was in him all the time and now that's his real self is totally lost on me. Because that's not, quote unquote, the Joker talking at Murray there. That's the guy we've been watching the whole movie finally getting to a boiling point. And he's just wearing that makeup. And then when you look at trailers for the new movie, it feels like they just take him right back to the Arthur Fleck you've seen this whole movie.
No, and he's on the verge of like crying the entire speech. Like, it's not really Jokery.
Okay, so watch this. Our Bruce Wayne introduction, he's going to slide down the bat pole. Are you ready? He actually slides down the bat pole.
Sorry, I don't know why, but the way he ducks down just made me think of, like that like old joke that people would do where they're like, oh, I'm in an elevator, and they like slide down behind the couch or whatever.
Yeah.
Mike Myers does that a lot. It just kind of looked like that. It made me laugh.
Well, for a second, I thought maybe he was doing that and they just cut too early. I think maybe they, you know what? I think he was doing that and they cut too early because he's doing this whole, like clown performance thing for Bruce.
Well, it's hard to say because he just goes down and then he pops back up and he's got the nose. So I don't think he's intentionally doing that exactly, but it just kind of looked like that.
Well, no, but he starts to go down and then they cut and then now he's standing in front of Bruce. I wonder if on the day Joaquin Phoenix wasn't doing that in one of the takes and they just cut too early.
I hope so. And then he does the walking down the stairs.
Yeah. There are motifs that Phillips brings up in his commentary that he just goes, this is a motif or this is a running idea. And I go, yeah, okay, so what about that? Repeatedly you have Arthur on the other side of bars dealing with someone. And Phillips points that out in his commentary. And my response is, what about that?
Well, he's like, was it Uncle Joey? He's going to have to get used to that.
Yeah. Like, is
I
that...
I guess that's what it is.
Is that all it is? That this is
way?
a guy that belongs behind bars? Or is it that he is, like, separated from certain parts of society in some way? Because if you always put him on the other side of bars from the upper class, you're maybe onto something. But the other big place where it happens is with the clerk that gives him information about his mother and the Wayans. Or maybe the idea is that it's just a wall up between him and his past. Maybe that's what it is.
And then there's also like a meta thing here, I guess, where he's on the other side of bars and on the other side is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. And like that's kind of cute, I guess. But the reason I can't decide if the movie is getting thinks it's getting at anything with that stuff. What the piece itself seems to be doing to you, according to you, the viewer, is a totally separate thing, right? Because like it can take on a life of its own, and you can see interesting theme and symbolism that the movie never intended. Sure, but I'm just wondering what sometimes those intentional symbolic things are supposed to be doing in the movie, because Phillips explains so much obvious stuff that when he brings up something like this and just goes, it's a motif, I'm going, you have no idea why you put that in the
movie. It's a theme.
Look, Joker almost kills Alfred before he's Joker.
And by choking him, kind of like how Bane snapped his neck.
This predates that by like 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it inspired Tom King.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was kind of odd in the theater looking at this, and being reminded of Gotham, just in that we've got a villain, like a major villain, becoming himself before you have Batman, and with a 12-year-old Bruce Wayne, and you're kind of overcomplicating Batman's origin, not to the degree they did.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. And then the irony is that show wasn't allowed to actually do Jokers, so they did two different characters that were obviously supposed to be the Joker, that they just never explicitly called that, and then this movie is only Joker for a Batman prequel.
Well, I think don't
That's
they do
very
three?
ironic.
I think there's 3 in Gotham. I think there's the 2 that are supposed to be, and then you have actual Joker, who's like the 3rd.
Oh, you're
brother.
Right. No, that's true. Chewbacca's Lover $2 Super Chat says, I assumed the VCR was stolen. Does this guy steal stuff?
I mean, you never see that. We could have done something with that.
Yeah. He could have been a thief on top of everything else.
Or like a dumpster diver.
Oh, that's good. I don't know why you'd throw away a perfectly good, like, $1,200 or $1,500 VCR in 1981, but...
because he stole it from a rich person's thing. He should have taken the VCR from those Wall Street guys. They should have just had a new VCR. And they're like, look at my VCR, bro. And then Joker shoots them.
Yeah, it is weird, the sheer number of people, including myself on first viewing, that seem to have missed, like I said earlier, the actual impetus for the uprising. Mm-hmm. In Gotham, that it's the comments that Thomas Wayne makes, and not just that those 3 kids got killed. Because I made that complaint too, and a lot of people did. And like, why did we miss it first time around? Like, I just think it's maybe not up, to the fore enough. And then that's just like I said earlier, kind of a POV issue. Oh, look, it's Sam and Twitch.
And this one guy, the one on the left, is this character in so many movies. Where he's just the cop that's always after the main protagonist. He's this in the new Mission Impossible as well. And I feel like there's other things that aren't coming to me right this second, but like, I swear I'm so used to just seeing this guy play this role. I
was massively distracted by this in the theater because these 2 guys immediately reminded me of Sam and Twitch. And then the heavyset guy's last name is in fact Burke. And I just I couldn't even believe that.
Now I just wish that Joaquin Phoenix in this movie is the white man that Spawn turns into. And he turns into this into Arthur Fleck, and he's like, I'm a white guy. I can't be this man.
Well, no, what it ought to be is an origin for the clown, not for the Joker. And then at the end, he somehow makes a deal with the devil and becomes Violator.
No, that's what it has not, like, it doesn't do any of that. Just at the end of the movie, is like, you get what you deserve, and he turns into
Violator.
And he bites his head off.
And then, he eats his heart.
Instantly a better movie.
I want that so bad now.
That would be so funny.
Okay, so one of the big tells, And I can't remember if I called this in the theater or not. I know a lot of people did that she's not really there. But one of the big tells should be, where's her kid?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, this was one of those things where I'm like, okay, this woman, his relationship with her is either not real because, for one thing, she's like barely in it. Like she pops in here and there, and I'm like, there's no way that we're devoting this little time if this is a real relationship.
And to like,
And
what would attract her to this guy?
well, and that too. And I was like, it's either that or this movie's like way stupider than it seems. So I'm like, it has to be that.
There's also some stuff that I find a little awkward, like, like a little contrived. That could happen, I guess, but it's part of what makes the whole thing feel sort of manufactured to me. The idea that that a popular late night comedy show is taking is taking footage from local comedy clubs and airing it is very odd to me.
No, that's like a Tosh.0 thing. Like, were we doing that in the 80s?
I mean, possibly, but usually nightclubs like that wouldn't even have a camera going.
Mm-hmm. No, and I wondered that too.
First of all. And second of all, would you be allowed to just air that footage and not tell the guy in the first place?
I guess because it's like a public thing, but it also...
You'd have to know you were being recorded, and
yeah.
And I don't know if there was a camera there, but maybe.
Well, and they don't have smartphones. Like, it's not like someone in the crowd was filming this.
No, and it wouldn't have been of that quality if they're just using a camcorder,
and
which would have been like $3,000 then, by the way.
And the shots we're seeing of it are the shots from the movie, just with a filter over it to make it look like it's lesser quality.
Yeah, and this is not a major complaint, but these kind of little things that don't quite ring true to me all add up at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of turns into the equivalent of eating out too often. Like all that money adds up by the end, and you maybe needed to budget a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea that, and again, it's at odds with itself. I wish it had gone wholesale in this direction, like Austin was saying earlier. But I like the idea that Arthur is like using this kind of revolution that he accidentally started as a way to prop himself up and get the adulation that he always wanted, and that he doesn't really care about these people, even though, and this could have been the quote-unquote joke, that like he actually does kind of represent these people, that, you know, they're the downtrodden, they're the people that the, you know, high society doesn't pay any attention to, that's built on the backs of them from their perspective at least. And he goes, okay, I actually just want to be famous, and I just want people to think I'm funny. And so he forgets all about his social woes because he's getting rid of them over this.
Yeah, for sure.
But because it goes too much in the revenge direction by the end, he also is still these people.
Mm-hmm.
I think Phillips thinks that he throws all that away, and I don't see how with the speech he gives at the end.
No, I mean, his speech is exactly what these clown people want.
Yeah, and it's as on the nose as humanly possible. At the point that script felt the need to use the word loner, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was already kind of thrown off in the theater watching it, and obviously it's not entirely fair to the movie, but like his speech is so close to what Todd Phillips was saying at the time about not being able to make comedy anymore.
I was going to ask you to talk about that.
Hmm.
So you feel like you're just reading him in that speech then?
Yeah, where I feel like I no longer see a character anymore. And it's already with what you're saying, like it it's not even really what that character was saying in the first place. Like he becomes a different person in that scene. And then on top of that, I also know things about the director where I just see him now. And it becomes very like soapboxy.
Yeah, because I don't know, like his beef seems to be more with individuals
Hmm.
initially, but then there is a society problem that he's seeing, I guess, with like you took my medication away, you're not giving me like the social help that you used to, but then he's also freed by losing those things.
Hmm. But then, it's he's being freed like as a person. That's how he sees it. But also, that's a bad thing. So, like that's another place where it's also kind of at odds with itself um, about whether we should be rooting for Joker or not.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't feel like it romanticizes the violence, but there is that
Mm.
how on his side for the sake of the story within his own worldview are we supposed to be?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
We'll get back to these super chats here in a minute. Let's talk about the whole Thomas Wayne thing. When you originally saw this, were you kind of like rolling your eyes at it, or did you think it was sort of a curious, interesting plot point? Just the notion that he's maybe Thomas Wayne's illegitimate child, and then did you find yourself going, well, there's no way that that's what this actually is?
So I had no idea where that was gonna go. At least from what I remember, like it's kind of hard. It's been so long now, but I feel like I was like, okay, are we doing the 89 thing where it's like we need to find a way for these characters to be more connected than they are?
Yes,
And we are, but
yes.
not not exactly the way it makes you think it will be at the beginning, or at least when we find that out that he might be his son. Because we are definitely doing that, like either way, just by the end.
So I kind of can't believe I'm saying this, but in some ways, I feel like it's actually maybe more interesting just for the sake of this piece, even though I wouldn't want a Batman thing to do with this.
Mhm.
If Arthur really is, in fact, Thomas Wayne's son.
I mean, that is where you start like an Elseworlds, right? Which is basically what this movie is.
Sure. And I'll get into my wacky theory a little bit later.
It's almost surprising that isn't an Elseworld that exists.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's a thing that other things play around with like maybe the hero and his arch nemesis are half brothers. Like Smallville teased it in an episode. They had a woman show up and claim that Clark was her long lost child that she had with Lionel Luthor. Like different things will play around with this idea, and then at the end, it's always not true.
Mhm.
But it is kind of interesting, even I guess if he's not Thomas Wayne's kid, that if Thomas Wayne did have, and I guess the movie is trying to tell us that it definitely didn't happen. I'm very not sure about it, but if Thomas Wayne did have an affair with Arthur Fleck's mother, uh, and you had any comic lore attached to this, and we're not, of course, told this, but that would mean that Thomas Wayne has a type which is crazy women that have wound up in mental hospitals.
Mhm.
Because in a lot of continuities, Martha Wayne has this. So,
Yeah,
like,
and this
that's
is
interesting.
after when we started doing that because that starts in Earth One.
I thought there was even a thing before that, maybe.
Oh, I could be wrong. I thought that kind of started with Earth One, but
But regardless, I don't know. That's interesting, right?
mhm. No, that is interesting. Do you know what Joaquin Phoenix said to Todd Phillips about the fridge scene when they decided to do that on set?
Oh, I think this is going to come from Austin's creepy joke notebook. What, Austin?
He said, "You're not putting me in the cooler."
And then just the idea of Joker kind of starting in this from the opposite place of Batman
Mhm.
is maybe a fun idea.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like either way, there's probably like some sort of element to that to the Joker. Um, so like kind of expanding on that, I agree.
Oh, you think that's just kind of baked in?
No, I just mean like I feel like the way I see the Joker is probably someone that wasn't super well off in the first place. So like that's obviously just personal read.
Sure.
Uh, but like yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, like, do
Building
you
on
think
that
that's
is
intentional? Where this guy, and also it's a very modern read because, of course, you have a lot of people these days who don't like Batman as much as people traditionally have in seeing him as, like the human superhero that doesn't have powers, in going, well, he's just and I've never bought into this really, but the idea that Batman's just a rich, out of touch guy that goes on the streets and beats up poor people. And you did start Joker in the opposite place with this.
when I always thought
We literally just saw him beat up a rich person.
once we knew that we were getting a second movie, I was like, okay, if we do a third one, it probably goes full on that, right? Like if we do try to do some sort of Batman for a third one, it's look at this guy coming down beating up the mentally handicapped. Now I
Yeah,
don't think
probably
we will
so.
actually do that, but that was kind of a thought I had when we found out they were making a sequel. Here's Brian Tyree Henry for one scene, and he is really good in just this one scene.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the kind of character actors in these movies are bigger deal actors that came in just so they could work with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, apparently the guy who plays Alfred is somebody. I don't know him from anything, but that guy is apparently, at least according to Phillips, too big a deal of an actor to show up for a one-day shoot.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that is offhand either. I'd have to look him up. At least I didn't recognize him.
And he said everybody just really wanted to get to work with Phoenix.
Hmm. Like I recognize the mom. Obviously, I recognize Brian Tyree Henry and Zazie Beetz. And then Robert De Niro's your big. Well, we're doing a Scorsese thing, so we have to get him in.
Dan Schneider, I think the point is that he thinks it's funny to kill people that wronged him. And, like, yeah, there's some truth to that, but then almost I almost want him to not be so jaded when he murders Murray at the end. Because, like, his big joke was supposed to be suicide.
Hmm.
And then what if he changes it not for, revenge as much, but because this joke is funnier? And, like, in a way, it feels like that's what they think it is, but it's not that.
Hmm. No, it does feel like it'll be funnier getting even thing in that moment where he gets on there and he's gonna kill himself, and then Robert De Niro like won't stop making fun of him. Where it's like now I'm gonna kind of stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I mean that it is the ultimate comeback.
And then he gets like really fun immediately after that, and like bounces around the way I want to see a Joker bounce around. Like, one thing I will really give Phoenix is I could have seen him as a traditional Joker.
Yeah, it's because I've said before, like for me, I think Phoenix is kind of lucky Leto exists because without that, he's the worst Joker. But at the same time, there's maybe like two scenes where he actually gets to be Joker, so it's also hard to rank it in that way because I feel like he's not really Joker until he smears the blood at the end.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, but there's like flashes of it on that set. Like
Yeah.
when he walks in and like makes out with the lady on the set and all of that, like he feels like I feel like I'm seeing a glimpse of what his traditional Joker performance would have been in a Batman movie.
Hmm.
And like when he runs up to the camera and
I do like when he starts to say something and then it cuts off. That's a good bit.
yeah, you know what's weird about it though?
What's that?
Then when you get again getting ahead of ourselves, but then when you get all the TV monitors,
One of them is playing what he was actually saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
it goes all the way.
Hmm. No, I didn't notice that until rewatching it today.
Okay, so this is some weird unreliable narrator kind of stuff because we're seeing a flashback the way Arthur is imagining it,
Hmm.
not what's actually necessarily happening. Because if we're consistent at all, this movie never gets out of his head. Oh, and also, he's standing right there, so we're still not getting out of his head. I forgot about that.
Hmm. Well, I think it's just these are the notes that he's reading. Like it's probably written out this way,
Yeah, but that's what I mean is
but
it's still
it's
unreliable to a
yeah,
degree, right?
yeah.
Because he's like maybe the details don't matter. This is probably more or less what happened.
Hmm.
But B, because we're not flashing back to a real honest to God scene, if there was any kind of foul play going on, we wouldn't know it.
Hmm.
He's basing the the scene in his imagination on a file that he got. And so I'm now going to get into my crazy theory, which is I and once again, this is not what Phillips intends because when you listen to his commentary, he basically comes right out and says the mother was delusional and she and Arthur was definitely adopted. But Thomas Wayne is the most powerful man in Gotham. If he had an affair with Arthur's mother and wanted to sweep it under the rug, he could have forged all of the adoption stuff. And it could have been like, for folks that know what I'm talking about, Metropolis United Charities in Smallville. With because they get into the whole idea of legally how do you kind of fake Clark's adoption in the real world, which was an idea I always liked that they dealt with, where Lionel actually helps out the family in creating uh, an adoption agency just for Clark, like a fake one. I like Thomas Wayne could have done much the same thing, and could have just claimed that this child was adopted because we don't know what the how the years line up exactly. And then curiously, there's a picture, and folks in the comments watching live right now, please tell me if there's any details I'm missing, or that I've forgotten that contradict any of this and make it definitely not possible that Arthur is still Thomas Wayne's illegitimate son. Because curiously, there's also this picture that we see a couple of times that he has of his mother younger with a playful note from Thomas Wayne on it, which kind of suggests they had a thing.
Do you remember what the note says?
I can't, where I don't. We'll look for it.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen it once, but it will come back. I'm pretty sure.
Hmm. Because my read is just that
I
it's
think
like
it was like "You're beautiful" or something.
Mm.
But I mean, like it was more than flirtatious. Like it looked like the kind of thing you would write because you have a like an actual relationship with someone.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because my reading was just that it's like a generational thing, and this movie's so much about that kind of mental health that I feel like if it doesn't have that and it is Bruce or Thomas uh, kind of forging that stuff, like, I do feel like you lose like the generational mental health aspect. Um, because that could have been her obsession back then, and maybe she got him to sign something. But I'd have to read the note. Like I don't. I don't know if I just missed it when I rewatched it today, but I just can't remember what it says.
Yeah, and that's one of the places where I wonder if the movie's not too ambiguous, because I don't know why that note is put there except to make me question everything.
Hmm.
But I hesitated even bringing it up because I've never heard anybody else say this, and I only had the thought on this last viewing I had. So I feel like I'm the crazy one here. Like, surely I'm wrong about this, that it's not possible, but I can't find that thing that makes it definitely an untenable theory.
Hmm.
I do think like you're right about the generational thing, although it could be both and, right? Like she
Yeah.
could still be nuts and that be true, and it kind of plays into the like sadistic cosmic joke of it all if that were the case, where it's the 1% versus the 99, but he's supposed to be part of the 99, and that's the joke, that he's not even supposed to be here.
Hmm. No, that is possible too.
And also that maybe like she was driven to madness by that, but then she wouldn't really pass it down if that were the case.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I either just blew everyone's minds, or this is going to be one of the worst rewind commentaries I've made. I'm not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you still have the kind of cycle of abuse thing with him, if that paperwork is to be believed.
Well, and then is there any face value to take from this? So when he says to his mother, "You wanted me to think my laugh is a condition," uh, it's not. This is the real me. Like, is that him being delusional, or just, or not even that so much? Is just like owning it, where it's obviously a mental condition, but he likes it. He wants to be that. That's who Joker is. Or is there any possibility that even the mental disorder is kind of in his head, and she just drove him crazy, and so like none of this is hereditary or chemical?
Well, I mean, it could still be he has a mental illness because that's what was like driven into him.
That's true.
But I do think it is just he's owning it by the end. I don't think there's any bit of it where it's suggesting that illness is gone. And I think the fact that it does kind of go away is more just kind of symbolic that he's accepted it and like he kind of controls it, as opposed to just it being a tick he's not doing anymore that he was always putting on.
Yeah, so you don't think they're doing the old Joker idea of like he's maybe scary, like most scary because he could just be doing everything he's doing because he wants to, and he's not actually crazy. They're not going to that place.
No, I feel like it's almost more of a Spider-Man 2 thing, uh, where he can't control it because his life's not in order, and then by the time he figures out, like, okay, this is who I am, now he has control of it, and he's just kind of embraced that's who he is.
And either he loves that because it gets him adulation from an audience, any audience, or he's got a lot of people he wants to get revenge on.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. Two of the guys Joker shoots could be self-defense since they were beating on him. Not the third guy running away. He shoots in the back, of course. Yeah, and I always thought that was actually kind of intentional, where it starts from a self-defense place and then immediately escalates to, no, I like this.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the way to transition it, right?
And I like that. I mean, I do like that he goes full-blown serial killer. I just have reservations about it being as revengey as it is.
For sure. Though technically he is a serial killer, I think, off of that first scene, because it's only 3 kills, right?
Yeah.
Although I don't know if it counts if it's in the same moment. I don't know.
I also want to step back for a second and say, at the very, very least, at least we don't have the Sony problem here where we had to try to turn Joker into a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least it actually is the origin of a straight up villain. And
He's not fighting another Joker at the end.
yeah, right. But like, any way you slice it, like, he is a bad person by the end.
Mm-hmm. No, that is true. He's not gonna go out and fight crime after this.
Yeah, well,
But now I kind of want to see that version.
And again, I think they're trying to do an ironic Batman thing where he like kind of accidentally falls into the position of vigilante.
Mm-hmm. No, that's why I want like that aspect to be completely out of his control and not something he really embraces.
Yeah. No, he just takes it as an opportunity. He's just a pragmatist with that.
Yeah, because that's life.
I also don't know how I feel about his embracing the Joker identity as he's deciding he's going to take his own life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even criticizing. I just don't know how to feel about it.
Well, I do kind of like that he kind of becomes himself, but in the idea that he's going to kill himself and then switches once he's living in that world.
Yeah, but like, do you think the idea is he just doesn't think it's sustainable? Where like he knows he's not going to get away with this for very long, so that's why he's going to kill himself.
Yeah, and like he's kind of at the end.
I'll never understand the painting the tongue thing. I have no idea why he does that.
It's just because he's crazy.
See, I want it to mean something. Like I don't like that. Why are you painting your tongue? It's weird. Okay, there it is. Love your smile. That's what he writes.
Oh, but I mean, you could write that just if you're signing something for someone. I don't think that's that out there.
He's not just signing something for someone though. It's like a cute picture of her.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a celebrity signature. Like she worked for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, do we know for sure that? Oh no, I guess we do because Alfred mentions it.
Yeah.
But like, if you were to hand,
see, I thought if you wanted to make it absolutely clear that without a shadow of a doubt that it was Delusion, just say that she never worked for him.
Yeah.
Why don't they do that?
I mean, then you kind of have the aspect of, well, she had issues and she worked for the richest man in Gotham, and look how much they don't care.
That's true.
This is probably like the best scene in the movie.
It is.
Yeah. And this is probably the most where I like him as Joker.
Yeah, but you're just saying that because there's a little person in this scene.
No, but that is one of the funnier jokes in the movie is when he walks by and then he goes like, ah.
Well, and his not being able to reach the lock is pretty good.
Yeah. No, that's good. Just black comedy. Like I can see that in like a number of Joker iterations.
Okay, so here's another kind of, this is from earlier in the movie, but another kind of contrived plot point, I feel like, just to get a ball rolling. Mm-hmm. Why does, and maybe this works better for you than it does me, why does this guy give Arthur the gun at the beginning?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Ryan,
because obviously he gets assaulted, so he's giving it to him for protection. But like, when he's also an a-hole, why does he do that?
Yeah, that's the thing is he's not a nice guy. It plays like he does that just to like create some kind of chaos or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand it. And then he's upset with Arthur because like he might get in trouble over it. And I'm like, why did you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
I was surprised to find out that all of the blood in this movie is CG. And it looks really good. There's not a drop of blood in the entire movie that's not a visual effect.
So I would not have guessed that from this scene. I can tell that in the Murray scene, but this scene I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. Like that initial splatter, it's pretty clear. But there are several places with blood just like on walls and people's bodies and stuff. And they couldn't. There were several places apparently where they couldn't use blood because they were shooting on location. So like they weren't allowed to have it in the like in the train scenes.
Oh, okay.
So they just decided to not use any blood at all in the whole movie. And Phillips makes a good point with that when he says the nice thing about doing digital blood is you can do multiple takes of things you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
No, very true. I think some of the gunshot stuff stands out to me more just because like I am kind of nitpicky about the kind of CGI squib thing.
Oh, sure.
But
it looks really good on
it,
his face here.
Yeah, no,
and
that's crazy.
It's not actually there. Like, that's nuts. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. I think somebody sent it to them because they thought it was really funny, like America's Funniest Home Videos. Murray wasn't looking for it. Oh, maybe so. Because you're right. We're not. He's talking about the video of Arthur in the club. You might be right about that. Because we're not told that there's any precedent for it.
Mm-hmm. So I was looking
like
there.
It's a segment they always do.
I was looking there, and I was like, I'm gonna see if they caught this. But there's also blood that wipes off when he touches the lock and doorknob. So that is impressive how much they were able to.
They did a great job on that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. $1.99 super chat. I missed this one. Thoughts on his Joker design? We didn't talk about this yet.
No, we didn't. I was actually going to bring it up now that we have it.
I actually like it quite a bit.
I feel like it's different for the sake of different. I don't dislike it.
Okay, can I tell you why I don't agree with that?
Okay.
Because it feels of its time enough.
Fair enough.
Like it feels very 1979, 1980.
Mm-hmm. No, I just always felt like they added the blue just to make it like look more distinct as just their own thing.
Oh, okay. Maybe so. I guess I'm just talking more about the like actual like coat and shirt and stuff. But yeah.
Oh, so the outfit, my thing is more so if you're gonna do King of Comedy, why is he wearing the King of Comedy red suit?
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like one of those places where you should make it purple because then it's not like as obvious you're doing King of Comedy, but I don't know.
You're just drawing way too much attention to it. Yeah, and
it feels more like a reference to that movie than anything else, at least to me.
Yeah, and so I haven't talked about this enough yet, and I didn't want to spend the whole commentary discussing this, but I'll just bring it up briefly here and say, now that I've seen both of those other movies, and I like them both quite a bit, I want to say I like King of Comedy more than Taxi Driver, but Taxi Driver's ending is just like nuts and the last thing I expected, and it holds up so well, like 60 years later, like or what, 50 years or however long it's been.
Yeah.
But I cannot deny that it is too derivative of those movies, and I know that there's an argument with people on both sides of that. Even folks that have seen those movies and like them that say that well, this is just taking some ideas from that, but it makes its own movie. And certainly, this character is in his way set apart enough from those other two characters. Again, partly in just because it's more muddled and I don't understand him. But like they made him more out of touch and more mentally ill and more difficult to relate to. So at least like that it creates some problems of its own. But at least he's not exactly either of those two guys. What makes it not as what hurts it for me having seen those movies is it wants to be on the same storytelling level as those and it just isn't. And secondly, I feel like my time is wasted in places in this movie where scenes just drag on, and every frame feels like it kind of matters in both of those other movies. And then the other thing is there are just whole plot points lifted from them.
Yeah, people have kind of
Like the
been
gun thing is
yeah.
in Taxi Driver.
No, people have been dropping like, "Oh, this is from this is from that," in the chat so far. And one of the things that was mentioned was the gun thing is in Taxi Driver.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
I caught
hoping
that
to
too.
watch that before we did this. I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. I've seen King of Comedy. I just haven't seen Taxi Driver. Um, and
And
I
the ending of this movie is in its way kind of like Taxi Driver, although I don't mind that as much because it is like more of a riff on it and going in its own way. I Because spoilers, and I won't full on spoil it, but end of Taxi Driver is your character that does heinous deeds, horrible murders. At the end is like glorified as a hero for it
mm,
and doesn't go to prison or anything. And here it's both sides of that, where there's a like group of downtrodden revolutionists that feel that way about him, but he does still end up going to prison. By the way, I also wonder how that happens
mhm.
because the riots were so massive, there was gonna be no like containing that in a timely fashion. I was actually really surprised the first time I saw this movie that he ends up in the institution at the end, Austin, because he gets. It's so weird to have the plot point of some of these revolutionary guys that are worshiping him hit his car on purpose so that they can like rescue him,
Mhm.
and then the end of the movie is he's in an institution anyway. It's like, who needs Batman in this world?
Do you think it maybe would have worked better if he didn't get in there? Because I also there's maybe a point that it's making that now
Me
that
too. I
he's
thought he was
accepted.
going to go in an underground and like be the king of these guys.
Mhm. Is it maybe saying something that now that he's become himself, now he's able to go into like he had to murder people to get mental health help?
Well, and we can go ahead and go there now. I was going to talk about this at the end, but I Philip says in his commentary that intentionally they made the ending quote unquote joke really ambiguous, where he's laughing, and it's his like actual genuine something is funny laugh because he's got all these different laughs,
Mhm.
and the therapist lady says, "What's so funny?" And he says, "You wouldn't get it." And you, the audience member, is supposed to try to guess at what the joke is. And you could be right. I didn't think of that one. My potential read on it was the joke is he feels more free now than he ever has, and he is in an institution.
Mhm. No, I agree. That's always how I've seen it too. I know there's some people that think that the entire movie is in his head because of that scene, and I don't get that at all. But fair enough if that's how
No,
you
I
feel.
no, I don't have that at all.
I think there's places
I
where
also think there are
because
people
we're
that just
comic book
want that
fans.
in every movie. They want every movie to be in somebody's head.
No, no, but what I'm saying is like I feel like because we're all comic book fans, there's maybe people that went, "Oh, I like Joker to have the multiple choice thing with his origin.
Oh,
Like I
sure.
want this movie to have some aspect of that." So maybe like that kind of impacted their read.
Well, and I do feel like that's part of the point of the ambiguity and the unreliable narrator. I Where there are some explicit things in this movie, but I think because you expect the Joker to have an ambiguous backstory, that's part of why it gets amorphous about some things.
Hmm.
Where there's always that chance that nothing that whatever you're seeing is not really real.
Yeah, definitely. And I would have liked it if we went like full crazy with that, where you really had to question every scene and if it was real or not. But I just don't know if it goes to enough of that for me to even have that as a possibility, especially with how much, like we said earlier, it has to drive in that the girl he was talking to isn't real, or not that she's not real, but their relationship isn't real.
Right.
Where I'm like, if you had to explain that to me that hard, like, why should I read into other scenes not being real? Like,
Jabugs Love Fight Super Chat, and Austin already talked about this earlier, but of course I'll read it. Todd Phillips started making dramas because he felt you couldn't make real comedies anymore. This only gets made because he felt comedy is too soft. And Austin was talking about how he feels like the end of this is a big statement about that. I feel like you could almost take it even further and say the whole project is kind of a meta commentary on that whole thing, and that he's making a drama about comedy that with a character that doesn't understand comedy to say Hollywood doesn't understand comedy.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
coming
it's
from
this
a
meta
director.
thing, and maybe he's trolling all of us, and the joke of this whole movie is it was never a drama and the whole thing is a comedy. And he used this as a way to kind of backdoor make another weird offbeat comedy. Not that everything in this movie is funny or not disturbing, but that what's comedic about it is that it's not supposed to be allowed to exist. Or like the kinds of movies he was making weren't allowed to exist, and he has to make something like this violent and in his mind out there to be allowed to do what he wants to do. And like that's the joke.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. But
Well, and The Hangover 3 is just straight up a crime movie, and it's very bizarre. I've always thought his statements on that were kind of clownish because his comedies are really bad, but they were also all very successful too.
nice word choice.
I know, thank you.
Dan Schneider,
That's
$5
nice.
super chat. He's doing this again. As someone who worked with a lot of midgets in my shows, I find Austin's mockery and disparagement of them offensive. Shame on you. Fire him, Cap.
It's not disparagement. I love them. They're my favorite people.
Josh, I kind of like Joker's design in this specific movie. And I have that with a lot of things with this, where it's like, this is not what I would want with Joker, but I do not want to see other Joker designs with the red nose, but I like that this Joker has a red clown nose.
I also like that he has a red clown nose. My thing with the makeup is I don't need the blue. That's about it. That's the part where I feel like it's different for the sake of different, but I like the red nose.
Well, and I guess I kind of like the idea that he's basing it on the design of the mask that he's wearing at the beginning of the movie when he gets beaten up by the kids on the sidewalk. Now that mask could have been any design, so like
Yeah,
your criticism still holds water, certainly. But
And I mean, it's not like it's like a big criticism. It's more of a nitpick, but yeah, exactly.
okay, so no stand-in, Dr. Ruth. Your line shouldn't be. You can't joke about that. That's not a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so weird when she says that. It's like, but
Yeah.
it's not a joke though. That's
Get out of here, heavier set Judge Judy. You don't know anything about comedy.
so. There was a part of me that wasn't sure I bought that after Murray starts actually believing him that they would even let him stay up there with him, that security wouldn't just rush in. But like a little bit of a looser time. It's 1981, and I get that it's subtle. I don't know if you saw it, Austin, but there is the stage guy in the background that
Yeah, where
starts
he's
making
like-
the like cut off move, and I like that at least that's there. And then Murray's like, well, no, this is good television. We're gonna get a lot of ratings out of this, so he just keeps it going.
When I said earlier, I like the bit where the camera cuts off when he's talking. There's also like 4 places where that probably would have happened before that.
Draven G says, I think the part where the rioters parade around him is in his head.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't have that.
Could be. I don't think it is. Now, I don't think that's an insane thing to say. But I think it may be, if that is what's going on, I think it maybe kind of undercuts his arc just a little bit, where like he keeps imagining all this adulation, and then when he gets to the end, this is what he has to do to finally really obtain that. You kind of want that whole thing to be real, and obviously the riots are really happening, so the idea that you've got all these clowns on the street that are inspired by him, but then it's a bridge too far for him to get up on a car and act like the king of them.
Well, especially because they would look up to him after this.
Yeah, and also like it's not in his head that they're the ones that rescue him.
Well, I guess with that idea, they probably don't rescue him. Like it's all in his head, I guess.
Okay, all right. Well, and that, like, I still don't love that as a choice, but it makes more sense than his just then getting thrown in an institution because I feel like he's got every opportunity to escape.
Hmm. No, I mean, I think his character arc works better if they're actually celebrating him at the end,
Yeah,
because he's already been feeling that in his head throughout the movie. Like that's one of the first scenes.
right.
I think you have to have it be real at the end.
Yep. I think so too.
I
Well,
also don't like
especially
the
because that mirrors Batman better, where like they're both symbols for different
yeah,
sets of people.
exactly, yeah.
And I do appreciate that there actually is some Batman in this in the like opposite ideas of him, even if some of it is I don't know a little modern for my taste, but
Hmm. I mean, this is very like post Nolan, I think, as well as like he's. I
absolutely.
think, I think if there's any Batman stuff he likes, it's probably that he's looking at.
I also got to say real quick, it's odd that Phillips in his commentary says, and he said this in lots of interviews too, that he didn't intend for this movie to be political in any way. I and I mean like you can have social commentary and not make a movie that is quote unquote political.
Mhm.
Where like there's a political. I just don't like the speech, Austin, and it's like it's the big moment, and
I don't like that
I
he
want to rewrite it right
says.
now.
um, Society thinks that we won't werewolf and go wild. I've never liked that word choice. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a verb when he says it. Yeah, it's very strange. But yeah, this is why the transformation idea was over my head because he's just Arthur finally lashing out.
Hmm.
Now, if you wanted to say he doesn't become the Joker full on until this moment, sure, and I kind of had that in the theater.
Bam, 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 bam.
But anyway, but what I was gonna say is, Phillips acts like he doesn't have any like political agenda with this movie.
Mhm.
He also, in the same commentary, says that even more than kindness and some of the other thematic things that he brings up, like I'm not gonna get it just watching the movie, he also says that it's full on about uh, how we need universal healthcare.
Oh, just because the
So I'm like,
Medicaid.
okay, that sounds politically motivated to me. I don't know, like that's a fair view to have, but it's weird that you would say that in the same place as you're saying not a political film.
Hmm. I mean, that's why the medication thing is like one scene, so it's not a political film.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, great. $2 super chat. How many times must we see the Waynes die?
All of
Uh,
the times.
I gotta say, in the theater, I just couldn't even believe my eyes when we got to that moment.
It's also, I think, one of the wonkiest Wayne murder scenes put to film. Just everything about the way it's done is very awkward, and we do the pearls thing because you have to do the pearls thing. But like,
Yeah.
why does he do that? Except for you have to do the pearls thing.
Well, and the age gap with several of these characters gets really weird. We haven't talked about that yet, but the idea that like even if it's definitely not real, I mean the idea that he could be Bruce Wayne's half brother. Like how old is Thomas Wayne supposed to be? Like Martha has a 12-year-old and she looks like she's in her 60s
Well, and you and I talked about this
or
off
older.
camera, but how old is Arthur supposed to be? Because
Yeah,
I think he's supposed to be significantly younger than
than
he
the actor
looks.
works. It looks and maybe they think they're getting away with that because the characters had such a rough life that he just looks a lot older.
Hmm.
But we're told that she worked for the Waynes 30 years ago and had an adopted son during that, so he can't be younger than 30, but he probably can't be older than 40.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I guess so. But he also looks 50, so it's like, I don't know.
But yeah, I guess the idea that the Joker riot is like the reason that the Waynes get murdered. I never want it to be more than just uh somebody in the streets murders them, like be it for desperation or whatever. It's at least not a conspiracy, so I like
Mhm.
that.
Draven G says, "How would you
Yeah, I
feel
was
if
gonna
all
get to that
three?"
in a minute.
Because in the theater, I was really hoping that's where we were going, because I was like, "Oh, this is straight up an Elseworlds. Like we all know that we're not going to get a Batman in this world, so you can do that." Like we'll never see this Batman fight this Joker, so who cares?
Yeah.
But then also, is this scene not more awkward? Because why doesn't he just shoot Bruce Wayne? Except for the fact that, well, it's a nod to the comics, I guess.
Well, but also thematically, you do have in a different way kind of the 89 they create each other idea.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess it's just for me, like, I see this world as just never having a Batman.
No, me too, but like
So it's,
I think again it's more supposed to be a thematic thing where it's about the haves and the have-nots. And so
mhm.
you're supposed to take what you know about Batman and just apply it to Arthur's arc and his worldview at this point and all of that.
So it's almost like the haves come down on the have-nots, so they retaliate, which then makes the haves retaliate. If you know what Batman is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
That's why it's kind of okay to me, I guess.
But then that's also the movie having to rely on you having background information.
Yeah, no, that I mean that's true.
And I mean, we all know who Batman is, so like that becomes like a slippery slope, but okay, fair enough. I want to be the
Yeah, but
clown
just
that's
no,
willing
you're
to
right. The
share.
principle of it, I never want you to have to bring like extra material to a thing like that. On the other hand, the arc itself
Hmm.
works fine without you even knowing who Bruce Wayne is, I guess, and then that just becomes another layer to it, except when you get to the very end and he makes that joke or he tells the woman she's not going to understand the joke,
And then you flash back
then
to
you flash
them.
back to him, then it's like, okay, well, this seems important, and if you don't know Batman, you won't know why you're looking at that. And I think part of the Joker not supposed to understand is and what's weird about it is Joker himself wouldn't even understand this, so this is just for the audience's benefit. But like for the movie, the joke is he is free now, but he's institutionalized, and Bruce Wayne is not free now, and he's the richest man in or the richest kid in Gotham because he's now going to be slave to his vow and the idea of Batman.
Hmm. Isn't that a joke?
Yeah, yeah. Tyler Saz, bleach skin, green hair, and it turns out the whole movie has been Joker telling his therapist a fake backstory. The whole movie is just one big joke. See, I don't think that's what it's doing.
Yeah, I don't either. Like I said, a lot of people had that, and I think it is just preconceived notions of the character.
JF Gearhart, I don't think this is supposed to be the same Joker that this Batman will eventually have as a main villain. This is the guy who inspired the Joker. I mean, you will never get to that, so like you could totally headcanon that. But that kind of thing is always awkward to me. Because what would make that Joker special? I guess the fact that he's got skills that could actually go up against Batman. Because we haven't talked about that aspect of it, but like one of the things that makes this just not feel at all like it's even, in the same vein or inspired by the comics character is this isn't a genius in any way.
No, he's not really good at anything.
The Joker's a mastermind. Like, this is just a crazy, insecure, like socially awkward, antisocial guy.
Mm-hmm. No, he's not really good at anything. And girls like guys with good skills, but he ain't one of them.
Oh, Tyler, I just didn't get what you were talking about. He says, "I'm just saying that's what I would have done." I don't think that's what the movie is actually doing.
Okay. I thought he was.
He means. See, I didn't understand what he meant by bleached skin and all that. He's saying that's what you should have done, which also would have required you to understand something about Batman.
I mean, I think that would have been really funny if it just cut to him and he is just straight up the Joker and he was just telling the story.
What would have been really funny is that's how they appeased Jared Leto, because Leto got really angry about this movie, and they go, no, it's fine. We're going to let you be the real Joker at the end. We're just imagining all of this.
He's got the damage tattoo, and he's like...
They do a reveal of it? They do like a rack focus?
That's one of the ways I see myself.
And he just goes, we live in a society where you get what you effing deserve.
And then he puts his hand to his mouth that has the smile tattoo.
It's so weird to me that the whole society meme came from this movie, and that line in the speech says he's like in a society that treated me like trash, and I'm like, well, that's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
The trash thing, the whole like trash issue on the streets, a little on the nose too, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole trash and rats thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a little surface. Okay, can you help me look at the comments and see if anybody has found the full-on contradiction that completely ruins my stupid theory?
I've been watching it and I haven't seen it.
You're right, Draven, that was Megatron. He wasn't Megatron until a week ago, but now he's Megatron.
He had one bad day.
And see, that part of the issue with this movie for me too is, obviously I never want to full on rewrite a thing, and I think this is okay and could have been more effective in making this character feel more real to me. But the one bad day idea is so much more compelling to me.
Well, I think that just requires the movie to have been a Joker movie.
Yeah. But that's okay. Uslan still got paid because it was sort of based on a Batman thing. So good job, Michael Uslan.
You did it.
As long as Uslan's getting paid, I'm happy.
You did it. Bob Kane's estate probably got paid with Bill Fingers.
With Bill Fingers. I did not interact with people in the comments enough as we were going through, so I'm going to scroll back up and just see what folks are saying.
I mean, I think we had a lot to say, so we were kind of bouncing back and forth a lot.
Well, and I was honestly kind of terrified that I wasn't going to have anything to say because I had such a, conflicted viewing with it this week. Mm-hmm. Tyler says the movie isn't as deep as it thinks it is. True.
He also just said, I didn't see any giant rats, and I agree.
I didn't see giant rats either. I'm wondering if Phillips is just being silly when he says it in the commentary, which if he was, good on him. I kind of like that joke. That's pretty funny if that's what he was doing.
I'm going to find out real quick. Let's see. Google image search. Okay, yeah, no, there are in fact super rats.
Oh, crazy. So the choice, well, and to be fair, I said I didn't see them. I listened to half that commentary without looking at the movie, and then the other half I was looking at the movie. So,
Hmm. I mean,
maybe I
it's
would
also
have,
just a rat that's slightly bigger, so it's not like it's anything crazy.
yeah, not huge, crazy super
No,
rats.
I want to see Vermin from Spider-Man running around.
Something else I didn't mention is I do like the That's Life motif.
Yeah, I like the song choices.
Like the song choice is good, and that just that being Murray's sign off.
Hmm.
Again,
But
it's maybe a little obvious, but I kind of like, he's full on murdering people that he doesn't like, and that creates all these riots, and then that's life. Like, I don't know, that's not bad.
mhm. It's obvious, but like in that video they first showed him where they play "Laughing" by the Guess Who. Like, I would have been down if they played that song too.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
no, I like the song choices in this.
But it also speaks to just like his rotten luck and
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
bad lot in life, and it also coming from uh one of the big representations of the 1% is like the people above the downtrodden just shrugging their shoulders at you.
Hmm.
That's life.
That's the way it is.
How do you feel about their version of Thomas Wayne? Because this is really the first time, at least outside of the Telltale games, and I don't know if that's like just after this or just before this, that we have like a less than squeaky clean looking Thomas Wayne. And I've had arguments with people
Before.
about this that are like, well, like he could be like completely above board, we don't know, but just like the attitude that he has and stuff, like he's at the very least kind of superior, acting at least a little bit superior to people that have less than he does. Like, we're at least doing that. I don't know that he's corrupt,
No, he's at least like a bit of a jerk.
but he's kind of a jerk, yeah.
I don't know. He's fine. He works for the movie that they made. I don't really have like he's so I think a lot of the stuff that is comic book in this is so far removed that it's like it's not like I'm like, oh, how does this stand in line with other versions of Thomas Wayne? Because I'm like, he's kind of a different character.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he works well enough for this. Oh, Bob Kane didn't have a with credit. I forgot he would have had
This is just
a
before that.
different. No, no, he is credited. What I mean is, I forgot that Joker would have different creator credits. So
Oh, okay, good call.
it was Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and I think it was something Robinson. I missed it. I
When
used
does
to
the
know
with
what it
thing
is, but
happen? Is that like just before this?
yeah, it's the first thing that appeared on was BVS.
Oh yes, you've told me that 100,000 times. I keep forgetting about that.
Well, I think it's in that documentary, isn't it? I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yes, it is. But the years are going by so fast for me now that they just jumbled together, and like to me that came out a few weeks ago. So
Well, I mean, you know what that is.
that's life.
That's life. Yeah, Jerry Robinson. Thanks, Dan's 10. I knew it was Robinson, but I was blanking.
Bob the Hunt, $10 super chat. A lot. Thanks for the support tonight, guys. Appreciate you. A lot of people feel their political views aren't political opinions, but common sense or basic decency. That's what is maybe going on with Todd Phillips' commentary in saying the movie is not political. Yeah, I mean, I had that thought too.
Yeah, no, it probably is.
But you got to know that for at least half the country, that would sound like a political statement.
Yeah, exactly. This has nothing to do with the movie, but I
Yeah.
just closed out of it and I changed the screen on my iPad and I just saw the thumbnail to this video. Did you purposefully put it so that it's put on a superhero rewind commentary, or was that accidental?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't do that on purpose.
That's great.
I couldn't put the logo in a better place, so I had to cut off half the words.
No, I love that. You should just say that was fully intentional because that's great.
Oh, thanks, man. No, that was an accident. I put on a happy face was also a last minute choice. Just before they did that scene, Phillips just came up with that and had uh and had Phoenix write it there. Like all the handwriting is in Phoenix's actual handwriting, and I don't know if that was an intentional callback to '89 or if he came up with exactly the same phrasing on his own. But like, put on a happy face is like a big line in '89.
Hmm. Did he say what it was supposed to be originally, or was there just no writing? And
There was no
that's
writing.
Oh, okay.
He just thought of it, and he was
Yeah, I
like,
don't
"Ah, let's
know.
try it." He was like, "No, that looks really good. I'm glad we did that."
It's hard to say because that's also such a uh, I don't know, like a thing I feel like you could get to just on your own.
Yeah, I think you could too.
It's so just kind of not
It's just
specific.
as soon as I hear that, I've got Nicholson's voice in my head.
Mm, definitely.
All right, well, let's go ahead and go to tweet length reviews,
Hmm.
and then we'll do our ratings. Austin, would you bring up Discord?
Yep,
And there's
doing it
just a
right now.
couple on Patreon.
Yeah, and I think we have. Oh man, we have 5 on Patreon. We just got a new
Wow,
one.
people have opinions, folks, and it'll be interesting to
Exactly.
see how disparate they are. And
Hmm.
it'll also be interesting to see if people use our scale or not.
They do. Well, remember, it was only on Patreon where they didn't. On Discord, they did last time.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So at least on my end, we're good.
Okay, well, did you start with those?
Yes. So from Subject 879 or John, he says, "This has gotten worse every time I've gone back to it, carried by a good performance that isn't really the Joker, not something I need to revisit often. Rating villain." Then you have Connor
Wow.
Nielsen. Mhm.
Oh, and I don't remember where Connor lands on this.
Yeah, so Connor says, excellently produced, Joker decently capitalizes on its novelty, largely thanks to a great leading man and strong tone. But I become increasingly unsure with what is trying to be said as Philip struggles to balance Arthur's POV with a broader societal critique.
I'm so glad it's not just me, because I feel like this is
Mhm.
the most muddled review I've given to anything in a long time. Where it's like, Cat, pick a friggin' lane. I'm like, well, the movie doesn't do that, so why do I have to?
One one of the worst musical scores to ever receive widespread acclaim, and I think it won the Oscar for that. If I'm not wrong.
Oh, he's saying he doesn't like
Uh,
the score?
yeah, which I kind of agree with. I
Okay,
feel
what's
like
wrong with the score? Because we
I
didn't talk
feel.
about music, we usually do.
Mhm. I just think it's kind of annoying in places, and then completely drops out in others. That's like I'm not like super against it like Connor
I
is,
wonder if
but I
Connor
don't
thinks
love it.
that it's trying too hard to like sound important, or like if that's part of the kind of pretentious,
Hmm.
like weighing down that's happening. Because
It does have some of that.
I go back and forth on that too, where like there's places where I really appreciate all the strings, and there's other places where I'm like, okay, calm down.
He's back. He's back on the throttle there, kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know. You got that Shakespeare protesting too much thing in places where it's almost like, no, really, I can make a dramatic movie. I don't just make comedies.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I'm making this because I'm not allowed to make comedies.
I can't make Hangover 4. Okay, MattBat68 says well produced and well acted, but Joker ultimately can't help but feel derivative of its many influences and feels thematically muddled as it struggles to find its own identity. Rating hero. Hot Soup, he says, never understood the hype with this one. It's pretty to look at, and the story is told well enough. But to me, it always feels like a Scorsese knockoff that wouldn't get half as much attention if it wasn't called Joker. Rating villain.
Yeah, it's leaning on that too much. To the point where Austin and I had an interesting conversation about this today, where Austin was like, it looks like they had another script in a drawer and they just doctored it to be a Joker movie, which I don't think is what happened, but it sure feels like it.
No, at the very least, it feels like that's what happened.
Did you
Oh,
know that the
sorry.
idea? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Jareth just said I didn't say Connor's rating. Sorry, I thought I did.
Oh, okay, cool.
Connor gave it a hero as well. Sorry, that's my bad.
Yeah, no problem. Did you know that the idea to do an art house type, like lower budget DC movie like this came from Phoenix in the first place?
That doesn't shock me because I remember when The Dark Knight came out, he made a big deal about how he wants to have that Joker moment like Ledger did. But
Oh,
he
did he?
also feels like it would be weird to do Joker because Ledger just did it, so we waited like over 10 years.
Well, and actually, it wasn't his idea to do Joker. They had to convince him to take that role.
Oh, okay, so like he still probably had that with Ledger then.
Yeah,
Okay.
he did. He was like, other people have done that. It feels like, well, what he said was, it feels like it's been done, which seems like kind of a diplomatic way of saying, Ledger already had a big performance with it.
Mhm.
But Warner Brothers was trying to get DiCaprio to do it.
Yeah, and I've heard that before, but I was never sure if that was true or not.
I and Phillips doesn't talk about that in his commentary, but I I did read that.
Because that's part of the Scorsese thing of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I read, so again, it's just wiki, so grain of salt. I don't know for sure. But what I read was they part of the reason they went to him was because they thought that they could get Scorsese more involved.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember there was talks early on that he might direct it or he might produce it, and then he did neither.
Yeah, well, and I, I have heard before that he was at one time attached, and then he took and then he didn't want to be involved, and he left. And I don't know how true that is either.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've heard people comment that he also looked at it and was like, "Well, I made these movies,"
Yeah,
but I don't know if that's true either.
it does sound plausible though.
No, I wouldn't be shocked.
It also bothers me, and I meant to say this earlier, and we didn't talk about all the ins and outs of all the stuff that this movie borrows or rips off from specifically those two big Scorsese movies. If you've seen them, you'll know. I mean, it jumps out at you. Like I said, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on that, but it bothers me that Phillips does not reference either of them in his commentary, and there are other movies that he does mention, and it feels almost like he's avoiding the subject on purpose.
Weird, because I mean that's not crazy to get in a commentary where they talk about influences.
Yeah, it's almost like he doesn't want to draw comparison because people are saying that that he ripped those things off, because he does that commentary. A lot of the time, commentaries like that get made like before the movie has even come out, and so nobody knows how it's going to perform or what the criticisms are going to be.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that was for like a later release or what, but the movie had been out a while when he did the commentary. And like you could tell because he was responding to specific praises and criticisms, and I felt like he was avoiding that like the plague.
Weird.
That's that's a thing. That's a thing I did not respect about that commentary. I thought he should have brought it up, but
Yeah, even if he was like, we were very inspired.
yeah.
Because I mean, there's a line we all draw it somewhere.
Well, because if you've seen those movies, and I'm talking too much about his commentary, but then it starts to feel like he's almost taking credit for ideas that weren't his if he never brings it up.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because he'll talk about plot points that they're kind of proud of, and I'm like, well, you might not have come up with that. Like you should at least name your influences. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we can all draw the line as to where, but like with that in particular, like with King of Comedy, uh with the idea of the guy that like forces himself onto a talk show, which is not exactly what happens in this, but like it's so similar, and you've got De Niro playing the other side of it now. It's odd not to mention them.
Well, and De Niro's both the King of Comedy and the Taxi Driver.
Yeah, that's right. He's both. And in this, Phoenix is sort of the taxi driver.
Mm-hmm.
He's more of the king of comedy thing, but he's toward the beginning and he's more the taxi driver toward the end.
Oh, okay. Super Billy, he says, Joker wears its influences on its sleeve and it doesn't pretend otherwise. It does enough to distinguish itself and stand on its own. Great direction, performances, particularly from Phoenix, cinematography, score, decent commentary, and a good story effectively told all add up to a solid, occasionally excellent film. Rating superhero.
I'm sorry, I totally didn't know you had any more.
No, it's okay. That was the last one. I think I said the hot soup one, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yes, yeah.
Folks are saying in the comments that he did mention those influences in lots of interviews, so I withdraw that. I guess if he's talked about that, it is weird to talk about the movie for 2 hours and never bring those movies up.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. I would have felt weird if we did that.
Oh, we should have. We should have seen if we could do it.
Yeah.
We should have came in with, you can't bring up Taxi Driver, King of Comedy, or Society. And if you do, you get buzzed. You get electrocuted.
Okay, great. Says some people say The Dark Knight is just heat. I've never seen that. But like Austin and I were saying earlier, like different people will draw the line at different places, but there's just too much directly lifted from those movies, especially because it's set in the same time period as they are, and the like visual style is so similar that like you start with an homage place with that, and then when you start just lifting plot points and like premise.
I mean, at the very least, I don't think it's too far off to say it's a tribute.
Yeah. No, definitely. Now, I think that if it had borrowed from 3 or 4 other movies as heavily as it borrowed from those 2, it gets away with it better, because then you just start, pulling from lots of different influences, and then you create something fresh and new. But when it's just 2 and the premise of each movie is so baked in, it does, like, I do find myself on the bandwagon of, I think it's a little derivative.
Mm-hmm. What I mean,
I want to go against the grain on it, and I just can't. I think people are right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say, you know what the funniest thing out of all of this is, right? Is that Scorsese's film directly after Taxi Driver is a musical.
Oh, that's really funny. What is it? I didn't know that.
It's New York, New York.
I didn't know he did that.
Mm-hmm. And I doubt 2 will have anything to do with that, but I just think that's amusing.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound like 2 is actually a musical, even though they kept talking about how it's a musical. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll find out tomorrow. Donnie St. Pierre, speaking of that, $5 super chat, just got out of the new one. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Ranks at 30 out of the 34 movies I've seen this year. I feel crushed. Oh, I can't wait, Donnie. I just can't wait. And then I'm wondering if somehow it even, if I really don't like it, like you're saying, if it hurts this some, because that happens sometimes. Like sometimes you can separate a movie from its sequel, and then sometimes, for me anyway, you end up with like a Man of Steel BVS place, where BVS absolutely made me see some of the seams with Man of Steel that I wasn't seeing. Where I was giving it too much credit in certain ways, and then I was like, oh, this is how this guy makes movies. Okay, now I'm getting it. Now I'm getting things that aren't working. I'm worried that can happen with this, and I'm also not liking this movie as much as I was. But I was already having that with Man of Steel, so...
Mm-hmm. I mean, is there the potential that it is bad and makes this movie look better with some of the, like, courtroom stuff where they have to address choices from this movie?
Yeah, that is possible. I also wonder if they do anything with Bruce.
I don't know.
That's a question. What if he has to go on the witness stand for some reason?
And he comes up and he's like, hey, Joker, you get what you effing deserve. And he throws a batarang.
He throws a batarang? Look, everybody, this is the first time Batman threw a batarang at the Joker in court. Chewbacca's Lover, Hero. I think it's pretty good, even though you have to think of it as an Elseworld story. Well, and I mean, doing more, and I think we will now with Gunn, but like doing more off the beaten path, just singular, its own universe, like kind of Elseworlds things, would be great. It's just I hope more of them are a little like actually mess around with source material more and aren't
What's
just.
also
It could have been a totally different thing. It just happens to, you know, cherry pick a few Batman things so that it can get away with calling itself Joker.
It's also fascinating because I've heard that Joker 2 is straight up just WB and not DC Studios.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's true. I've just heard that, but I think that's kind of fascinating if true.
Oh, why did you have to keep talking, Donnie St. Pierre? I'm so nervous about having to see this tomorrow.
Maybe he was the guy at the theater that I saw.
He put in. Are you in Canada? He put in a $5 super chat. Another one, and thanks for all the support. Again, he says, just to be clear, I adore the first movie and went in costume. And he put it at 30 of his 34. He says, just so you know where I'm at. Yikes! And I don't love this movie. Oh boy. Bob the Hunt, $5 super chat. I'm going to immediately plan to watch something I really, really like immediately after this.
You're going to go home and watch 89?
I am. I'm going to come back and watch 89. Joker 2 is supposedly a response to all the toxic people who admire Arthur and relate to him, and F you to the fans, supposedly.
I've definitely seen reviews of that. I've seen kind of both sides where there's people saying that it's a masterpiece in reviews, and then other people saying, yeah, I feel like it's that kind of thing where it's doing something very specific, and we've had sequels that do this, and if you're into that, it hooks you, and if you're not, then it doesn't. But that's just like the sense I've gotten from seeing people talk about it.
I also wouldn't put that above this guy when it seems like he made a movie that ended up making $1 billion that he mostly made so that he could, it seems, complain that Hollywood won't let him make the kind of movies that he wants to make, and so that he would respond to people that he doesn't think got his movie and related too much to his scary protagonist. That's not outside the realm of possibility at all.
Mm-hmm. No, and Dan pitched his next movie to me, which I really want to happen, which is him making a Doctor Doom movie that's just a remake of Caligula. It won't happen, but that would be hilarious.
Making a what movie?
A Doctor Doom movie.
Oh.
That's just Caligula.
Oh, and I meant to say this earlier, but Phoenix. Well, you mentioned that Phoenix was in the running for Doctor Strange, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be tied into a contract where he had to keep playing the same character.
Well, now that we know he apparently just ditches projects like at any time, that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, but I also can kind of sympathize with wanting to be an actor that plays lots of different characters and not get stuck, especially if the franchise goes downhill and you still have to keep playing the character, because that keeps happening with superhero stuff where you're locked in and it's not at all the same quality it used to be, and it's no fun to show up to work. Like I get why you wouldn't want to be locked in like that. And he said the only way he would do a comic movie is if it was one and done like this.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
And then ironically he got stuck in a franchise and has made a sequel.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. That's something that's like come up recently.
Dan Sten says, I have watched way too many Todd Phillips films. He's a notorious troll. This is the only one I've watched, and the more I'm learning about him, this feels like a troll film. But, impressive that it holds together as well as it does and kind of tells a story if that's what it is. Like, that's, like I'm not even really complaining that much if that was part of his motivation for making this movie, because that's one of the only things I can actually kind of call subtle about it, because if you're not familiar with him, you wouldn't know that.
It would be the funniest thing he ever did. That was just straight up a Joker laugh.
Yeah, I've been trying to be careful and reel it in because I'm realizing that if I find something funny enough, I go to something that sounds a little bit like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker laugh, and I also I'll go to that or I'll go to something that's real Gorshin.
You should try to do a Leto where your laugh just slowly sounds more and more like a rusty door opening, where it's like,
Yeah, and as ridiculous as that is, now imagine that you method acted it, and that's just the only way you laugh for weeks on end.
while you're like sending used condoms to people
Yeah.
and dead super rats to Margot Robbie.
He's like, here's the super rat that you pointed out on the edge of the frame in this scene. Senior $60 super chat. This is a Batman-less story like the Sonyverse. No, this is better than the Sonyverse because the guy that will be Batman was allowed to be in it. We at least went that far.
Yeah, it also doesn't look like complete crap.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's like a notch above that.
And you can't say that Madam Web got close because it had Uncle Ben in it because that's not technically part of the same universe, apparently.
Hey, it had Uncle Ben and Peter's mom.
Did it have like a baby Peter? I can't remember.
Yeah, doesn't she give birth or something at the end of that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Except you only have Uncle Ben and Peter's mom.
If you begrudge me not remembering things about that movie, I'm going to fire you. Why would I remember?
You should remember that. Peter's mom has got it going on.
Okay, I'm going to read one more tweet length review, and then we'll go ahead and give our ratings. We're taking way too long to finish this. Cinder Inc., it was a genuinely... I don't want to go see that movie tomorrow. I'm really worried about it. It was a genuinely unnerving watch in the theater, but I've since agreed with the arguments that it ultimately is murky in what it has to say about its subject matter. Not helping that my main memory of the movie is the fact a dad actually took his two kids when I saw it. I hate it when that happens. It always really bothers me. Just so they could play on their tablets for the whole duration.
Oh, that's the part that got me.
I'm surprised I even asked him if he was at the right screening, to which he said, yes, hero.
You know what you should have said to that guy? You should have said, you know what
sorry,
happened?
Can I just say this real quick? That's my favorite Patreon review in a long time.
That is a good one. You should have said, hey, do you know what happens to a guy that takes two young kids to see an R-rated film? They get what they deserve.
To everyone else. Oh, you get what you deserve.
Oh yeah, the same thing that happens to everyone else. They watch an R-rated film.
Yeah, I want to go back and edit the end of this so that it's that storm line instead.
I want both. I want that storm line to be, you know what happens to a toad that gets struck by lightning?
You get what you effing deserve! That's so good! Schwager's Lover, $2 super chat. Jared Leto's laugh sounds like a decrepit grandpa. If that decrepit grandpa was also a door.
It was a rusty door.
Okay, appreciate all the super chats. That's a great reason to run long. I appreciate you guys. Austin, do you want to go first or second?
I can do either. It doesn't bother me.
Okay,
actually I'll go first because you're on the fence. Yours is probably the more interesting.
I feel like I've been on the fence a lot lately, just in like exactly what the rating is gonna be. But once again, I'm between two. I think I know what yours is gonna be.
Probably. I don't know. I'm gonna give this movie a villain.
Villain, yeah, that's what I thought.
It's the production level's too good, I think, for it to go into Nemesis. But overall, most of it doesn't really connect, and it just kind of feels very up its own ass. And I don't appreciate that. And you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get it. So how did you feel? What is your rating?
I think it might be slightly better than that for me. Like, if I go hero, it's a really, really low one. Like, it's nearly at villain. And...
like, right at the line.
Right at the line. And like I said, a lot earlier, there's so much elevating that script, but it's not a great script. And also, it's both thin and underwritten and overwritten all at the same time. Which is a very odd thing, problem to have. And yeah, I don't mean to like use a like a creator's um words to sway me one direction or another with a thing. Like I want to look at it on its own terms as much as I can. It is telling to me though, Austin, that Philip said that he could have cut a completely different version of the movie. He had so many different takes of everything, and that every scene, he had Phoenix reacting in completely different ways, and that tells me you don't have a vision for what your story is. Like when you can have him like he would, and of course it's a pretty passive character that through a lot of the movie things are just happening to him, right? And his reactions, he said in every scene we would play it sad, angry, etc., etc. I'm like, that's a really weird way to try to tell a story.
Especially
And
from
I
a guy
think that's
that
coming through too much on screen.
no, especially from a guy that said the best thing about CGI blood is you don't have to do multiple takes with it, or like you can do
Oh,
multiple
right, or you're
takes
right. I
with
never turned the
certain
timer off. Well, that tells you how long the movie would have been if it was still going while we were talking. Yes,
Yeah.
I left the timer going for an extra half an hour, Austin.
No, it's the 3-hour cut. This is the part where Joker meets all the super rats, and he meets the Sewer King.
And I'm giving it enough credit in its storytelling that I'm trying to read things that I'm coming to find I don't know if they're readable. Like I feel like it's too ambiguous in like its ideas, messaging, and not that everything has to have a message, but
I
so
mean, this
yeah,
movie also was trying to have one.
that's my point. Is I almost wish all the kind of quote unquote messaging, the politics were in the background, and it had a protagonist that did not care about any of that, and so the social commentary, I guess, would be this is a world that can create a person like this. But for him himself, it's, oh, this gives me the opportunity to be as like horrifying and scary as I've always wanted to be, and I just do that because it's fun, And again, it's frustrating because he wants to do that, but it also isn't doing that. I think I'm going villain. I think it's hard though,
Yeah.
especially because I like this movie a lot more when I first saw it. But I don't know, like it's a really low hero or it's a really high villain. I'm also not alone. It looks like a
No,
lot
as
of us
Michael Jackson once said, "You are not alone."
I mean,
Matthew
not
Bass just in the chat said that he
yeah,
rated it hero but dropped to villain.
yeah. That's where I'm at. I guess I'm gonna have to stick to my guns on that. Which means where I placed it is probably gonna drop a little bit in the ranking. But anyway, Senior Sticks, Cap, you're saying Madam Web counts as it connects. I don't know what that means.
Well, just because there is a Peter Parker in it, I guess.
Oh, counts as sorry. I'm back to that conversation again in my brain now. Yeah. No, it doesn't count only because the people that made it said it wasn't in that continuity is all I was saying.
No, Madam Web is connected in the Joker verse.
Okay, let's see where Austin ranked this movie. And once again, apologies. I've got to set up the.
Yeah, it's okay.
Everybody's looking at black again. Hold on. Okay, Austin put this movie. I'm still scrolling.
He's still scrolling. Okay, Energizer.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't see it at all.
You might have to reload. I do have it on here.
Let me refresh it.
If you already had it up, that's probably why. I think I added it
Okay.
right before we started.
Yeah, no problem. There it is. He's got it right above Spawn. So
Yep.
28 is where you put it out of 34.
So close to being. Oh, I feel like I have to move it now just so that it's 30 out of 34, like Donnie St. Pierre put too.
Oh yeah, but
So close to
I
greatness.
don't. I don't think, in good conscience, you can put this above under Spawn.
I don't think in good conscience I could put this under Ultimate Avengers 2.
I've got it at 23 right now, but I rated the Phantom higher than that, so I've got to drop it at least one below that. Um, and then it's
Or
like,
it's just inconsistent.
is it better or worse than Fantastic Four?
So the big thing that put it over Fantastic Four for me is just it looks way better than that movie does. And I also dislike Fantastic Four more than you do.
Neither of those are great
Mhm.
stories, of course. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's funny. I'll say like Joker. Well, I said it doesn't offend me. I guess some of the ambiguity kind of does, just like on a like a writing level.
hmm Though Joker is a worse story than Moonwalker.
Or
That's
maybe I
just
shouldn't even
true.
say ambiguity. I did complain that there were some things that were too ambiguous, but more just like how muddled that characterization is. But anyway,
No, because it's not like an intentional ambiguity.
but I still think it's better than the Ultimate Avengers movies just because it's more interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I guess 24 is where I'm putting it, right under the Phantom. So it's higher.
So close to losing to Moonwalker. But
Yeah, I don't think I can put it under Moonwalker. I know that's what you want me to do desperately, but
Yeah, because Michael Jackson is much more of a smooth criminal than this version of the Joker.
I'm glad James Egan said this. 7.99 Australian. He says, "Wouldn't villain be an actual positive rating because Joker's a villain?" I thought about
So I
flipping the
also
whole thing for
I
this.
thought of
Yeah,
that joke on the way here, like driving from the movies, and I completely forgot about it. So I'm glad that you said that,
I
James
thought about
Egan.
totally flipping it, where if you wanted to rate villain, you'd have to rate hero.
Mhm.
Or I guess superhero. So if you really hated it, you'd say legend, and that's pretty funny.
Mhm.
It's legendarily bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then it tips the whole scale to a more negative place. So
But neither one of us was willing to go that far. Okay,
nope.
well, we appreciate all of the conversation tonight, folks, and all of the support with Super Chatters. Austin and I are going to be off next week from Rewind. Austin's got Thanksgiving because he's in Canada, so they live in like the mirror universe. They have weird dates for things.
That's the real Thanksgiving.
But I am gonna do a commentary next Friday with John, or at least that's the plan right now. We're gonna do Misery, which is my favorite horror movie, and it was John's idea. He's like, he's like, I've never seen that movie, but I liked the book, and I was like, great. So that's what we're gonna do next Friday because it's again October. It's Halloween time. Austin and I will be back in 2 weeks for another one of these. So tonight, to find out we don't even know what we're doing yet. We're gonna spin a wheel, and I have included every movie that counts, at least for this show, that we have talked about on our top 100 so far.
Does that
So
include the ones we did yesterday? Because I know you asked me for it the other day
yes,
before we did
yes, I
that.
included
Okay.
everything we did from yesterday. So it's all the way to number 70, or do we even get to like
No, I think we
65?
started at 70 last night.
Okay. So I included everything that counts and that is at least 2 years old. And there are some sequels on this list. So if we do a sequel before we do its first movie, I mean, there's precedent for that. We've done that before, but that could happen.
Yep.
Austin, I know you can't see my screen right now. I will go ahead and screen share so you can see this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see what it's going to be because there's like a ton of options.
There's a ton of options. Just wait. It's a big wheel. Do you see it?
Uh, yep, I got it now.
Look how big the wheel is,
Whew, that's
Austin.
quite the wheel.
Yeah, and there are some major things on this list. I mean, this
hmm
is a way like Endgame could happen. Like I
Hellboy
say that,
2019 could happen.
I actually might have missed putting Endgame. Okay, Endgame won't happen because I forgot to list it. Maybe I should go
I
ahead
just
and.
saw. Are you sure? I think I just saw Endgame.
Did you see it?
I go all the way up to the wheel.
Just go back to the wheel. Yeah, I don't see it.
Oh no, sorry. I saw Toxic Avenger Part 2.
Okay, I'm. Yeah, and that's funny because the first one's not on here. I'm going to go ahead and include that. Although I say that... Oh, no, Age of Ultron is there. Okay. So anyway, here's the wheel, and in 2 weeks we're going to do whatever we land on here. Austin, what are you most hoping for?
Big money, no whammy. What do I want out of this? Kick-Ass would be good.
Yeah?
Iron Man 3 I'd be down to do soon. Ghost Rider I've wanted to do for a while, so I would be happy with that.
Sure. Hulk we wanted to do this year anyway, so there's part of me that wants that to come up.
Yeah, but then I also have to rewatch Hulk.
That's true.
Who Todd Phillips just said recently is like one of the few movies he's walked out on, which is kind of amusing.
That is amusing because I feel like in some ways that handles the mental health issue better than this does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Godzilla 98 and Hulk.
Wow. Well, that tells you everything you need to know, really.
I mean, I can understand Godzilla 98.
Well, no, but I mean the Hulk thing.
Yeah.
So interesting. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's spin it.
Big money, no whammy. Here we go. And
it's... Oh my God, is it Hulk?
No, it's Batman Ninja.
Yeah, Batman Ninja. That's another one that was on my short list I was hoping for. Okay, that's exciting.
Which I've never seen.
That's exciting for me. I don't know if you'll like that, but I think it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost stupid. I was almost like I put it on my top 100, obviously. But did you see how close it was to Hulk?
Oh yeah,
it was like right next to Hulk. It almost was Hulk.
Jareth Gearhart, Punisher 2004 was not on the wheel. I don't think I know we haven't gotten to it on my list. I don't think you've had it.
Punisher 89 was on the wheel.
Yeah, I put that on my list
because you just mentioned that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
James Egan, Watchmen. I'll keep saying it. Watchmen has not showed up on our lists yet, because it's gonna be higher. At least on mine. I would be shocked if Austin just didn't include it. So it must be higher on his too.
Should I answer? I don't know.
Did you not include it?
I don't know if I should answer that question.
Well, I don't either. Because and like I'm not even judging you. I'm just finding myself going like some of the movies you're not including. I'm like, you have to come up with 100. Like what movies are on your list if that's not there?
But is it on my list? I don't know. I don't know.
That's got to be on your list, right? You're not gonna tell me. You're not gonna tell me.
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you if you want.
No, that's all right. I'm kind of enjoying not knowing. Now the whole time I'm just gonna be like, are we gonna see Watchmen? Is it gonna show up? Watch it be in the next video.
Maybe.
Watch it be in the next 5.
Maybe.
Although it can't be the next 5 because you were like, there's nothing interesting in the next 5.
Yeah, but then I was also, this might be interesting to some people, so I don't know.
It's not gonna be Watchmen, that's for sure. Well, anyway, so break from this next week, but we'll be back the week after for Batman Ninja. I'm excited about that. I might actually watch that early. And it's not like really a Halloween movie, but like, you know, it's kind of moody and weird. It'll be a good one for this month.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can try to do like a more Halloween-y one near Halloween. I know there's movies we've talked about doing outside of Rewind.
Yeah.
But like on a different day.
Well, and we can always just like straight up pick the next one.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Like we could always do that closer to
more Halloween-y when we want to do.
We'll turn to Swamp Thing.
Yeah, or just Swamp Thing. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, everybody, thanks for watching. We sure appreciate it, and we will see you again real soon. I've got to do Patreon. So as always, quick plug for Patreon, patreon.com/geekvolution. The $10 tier is how you become a Patreon producer, and one of the many perks at that tier is you get your name read at the end of every Superhero Rewind commentary. And so thanks to all of the patrons, but especially to these folks, Breezy Hemi, Jesse Surtees, Jajira, Chewbacca's lover, who was here this evening, Dr. Hello, Goofster, Joe Turner, John Matthew McLean, Super Billy, who is also here, Vic Apocalypse, Victor, Abic Stark, Adam March, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Invisipig, John Sandoval, Kareem Roberts, Kate, Mattbat 68, Matthew Brody, Michael Martin, Miguel Rodriguez, This Guy, The Day Ghost, and Wendell Jones. And James Egan put in a $7.99 super chat and said, I meant for the commentary 15th anniversary this year.
That is true.
Yeah, I thought he meant he was hoping Watchmen would come up for the next commentary. We were just saying it couldn't be on the wheel, but we do want to do it this year. This is the year's getting away from us, so I don't know if it'll happen, but we should do it. That's just a thing that I'm being careful about because I want some prep time for it. Because depending on which version we do, that's a 3 or 3.5 hour commitment. And I also kind of want to reread the book before we do it because it's been a while. And so I don't know. Part of the reason I put Watchmen off for so long is that's prep time. You got to spend some time with it.
When we talked about doing that the way we did Dark Knight Returns, where we do a comic fall on the or no, maybe we didn't.
No, we talked about that because I've never done it.
Oh, okay. I know we talked about that with V for Vendetta. I couldn't remember if Watchmen was one of them.
Yeah, no, we did. So if we did that, then that's even more of a commitment. Although, like I said, I want to reread the book anyway, so...
No, I would do the same thing, because a lot of what I have to say about that movie, also, I need the book fresh in my mind.
And I loved the way we ended up doing Dark Knight Returns, because we were able to focus a lot more on the production and talk about that as adaptation than get so much into story, which is what this show is mostly about, but when you're straight up adapting... so closely from a book. And Watchmen's a little bit different because we can talk about the places where it strays, but even more so than Dark Knight Returns. But it is nice to kind of get that out of your system.
No, I feel like I need that for Watchmen because it's like the book, but slightly off because he doesn't understand the characters.
Yeah, and increasingly I'm agreeing with you, which hurts my feelings because that was in my top 10 for the longest time, and I'll admit that's not true anymore. I won't tell you where it is, but it's not in the top 10.
And I still don't know if I should say.
You didn't put it in, did you?
No, it did not make my list. It was one of the films that got kicked off.
But again, I'm just going. You got to pick 100.
Yeah, I have 100.
That's
I have
crazy. He has a Hulk. It did make my list, and it's probably a lot higher than you would agree with, but it's not my top 10.
No, I had it at the bottom of my list the entire time, and then as I watched more things, it slowly got kicked off.
I had the worst watch I've ever had of it a few months ago, or like a year ago, where it feels really quaint now. I have a poster for it right here, and I'm just going, I don't know how much I still love you, but
you say it like it's like someone you're married to.
I'm gonna get a divorce from Watchmen.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I woke up Watchmen and I realized that I don't see the same Watchmen that I once loved.
You've changed. We've drifted apart.
It's time for us to watch other movies.
All right, everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. I was Captain Logan. Austin, thanks for doing these as always, man. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course.
We finally got Joker done. I know you're happy about that.
Oh, yeah. I was not looking forward to this, and it went way better than I expected, so I'm happy.
Yeah, well, that's good. It was fun talking to you about it.
It was, yeah.
All right, later, folks. Bye, everybody.
See ya.